We'll reconvene our meeting back into open session. We've already began our meeting at 4 o'clock with the invocation and pledge of allegiance. I welcome you to your Johnston County Board of Education board meeting. This is a nice looking room full of people, so I'm glad you came today. I will turn this open meeting over to Dr. Cosby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point in time on the agenda is time for the organizational structure of the board for the upcoming year. And as such, this podium is turned over to me to handle the election of chair. This board operates under Robert's Rules of Order, which requires a nomination and a second for those who are running for position of chair. And an individual can nominate or second a motion for themselves. So those are the rules that we'll go by. This time I would open the floor for any nominations for chair of this Board of Education.
Dr. Cosby. First, I'd like to say, Chairman Wooten, appreciate your willingness to serve as chair for the last few years, and we certainly respect your decision to not do that again and give more time to your family. Mr. Johnston approached me several months back and said he was contemplating running for chair. I said, if you want to run for chair, go for it. A couple months back, he came back and he said, I've decided that that's what I want to do. And I think anybody that desires to do that should have that opportunity. I think no one would deny that if Mr. Johnston has a passion about anything, he puts his heart into it. And he has indicated to me that he has a passion to be chair of the Johnston County Board of Education. With that, I nominate Ronald Johnson.
I have a nomination. Is there a second to that nomination?
I second that nomination.
Okay, the nomination is made and seconded. Are there other nominations?
Dr. Cosby, I echo the same words, Mike. You've done a remarkable job this past year that I've served on the board and got to know you both as a board member and personally, and I appreciate the leadership that you've offered and the support that you've given to us this year. I would like to nominate Todd Sutton for chair. His experience in the professional world leads great leadership skills that would be beneficial to our board. Thank you.
I have a nomination for Todd Sutton. Is there a second to that nomination?
I'll second.
Are there other nominations?
Move nominations be closed.
Okay, motion to close nominations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll vote in the order of which the nominations were made. Those in favor of Ronald Johnson for chairman of the Board of Education, please raise your hand. I see 2 votes, and you got those recorded. Oh, Michelle, here they are. Okay, those in favor of Todd Sutton for board chair, raise your hand, please. I see 5, so Mr. Sutton, congratulations, you're elected chair, and you 2 guys get to change seats. Take your name.
Dr. Cosby, I'm going to save my comments while I'm still gathering my thoughts here, but I guess at this time I will open the floor up for nominations for vice chair for this coming year.
I'd like to nominate Dr. Peggy Smith for vice chair. She has served this past year with distinction and has led the policy committee, which is the chief responsibility of the vice chair. She's done an extraordinary job leading us through policy revisions and amendments, changes, and development. And so I'd like to nominate Dr. Smith.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other nominations? Do I have a motion to close it?
Make motion to close nomination.
Thank you. So we have a nomination and second for Dr. Peggy Smith to be vice chair for the coming year. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, I'd just like to make a few comments. First and foremost, Mike, big shoes to fill. You took over and did an outstanding job. You're an upright and ethical man, godly man. Many times we prayed in this boardroom for you on different things you were going back and forth to Duke with, and just have a lot to carry on with you moving on. But good luck spending time with your family. But love you, brother, and God bless you and everything you've done for us in Johnston County Public Schools. You've given a lot of time and effort away from your family and your job to make sure that the students and staff were very safe. And we commend you on that and the integrity that you have as far as that goes. In light of several media articles in the past couple of weeks, integrity is the utmost importance to the Johnston County Public School System, as well as your Johnston County Board of Education. And we support total transparency in all that we do. With that said, there had been no specific information and/or evidence provided with regards to corrupt, deceptive, unethical, or illegal behavior, or who, if anybody, had acted in an inappropriate manner. However, on the evening of December 3rd, I met with Mr. Johnston, and during our meeting, additional information that included specific information that had not been shared up until this point pertaining to alleged inappropriate acts that may have occurred. After receiving this information, I informed Chairman Wooten of the information that had been discussed, and in less than 24 hours, a meeting was requested with the Johnston County District Attorney, Susan Doyle. This meeting occurred on the morning of December the 5th, during which information that had been obtained was discussed and an investigation was requested. It was explained to us that unless evidence is presented of a possible crime that has been committed, the SBI cannot or will not get involved. This morning, District Attorney Susan Doyle responded to me, and in lieu of the fact that no evidence of a crime being committed, no further actions will be taken by her office at this time. However, we continue to encourage and welcome an independent investigation and will fully cooperate as requested and needed. It is now time for the Board of Education to focus our attention to the matters for our children and citizens, staff and citizens of Johnston County, to provide a rich learning and safe environment for our students and staff within Johnston County Public Schools.
Mr. Chairman, may I add just one statement?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. For the public who are watching and in the room, I do remind you that in last board meeting, we did have a clean audit as performed by an outside entity. There were no discrepancies in that audit as well. So I just wanted to remind everybody that financially, we are not where we are because of any wrongdoing. So thank you, sir.
And I would like to add that if anyone on this board or out there has hard evidence, I beseech that it be brought to this Board of Education so that it can be investigated. Integrity is a heavy word, but it's one that we carry on our shoulders. And we are depending on our board members as well as the general population of the citizens that we represent, that if there is hard evidence, we have a duty to report that. And I would like for that to be brought forward. I have no problem with naming names if hard evidence comes along with it. And if there is any evidence of financial wrongdoing, even though we've been through an audit, if there is evidence to suggest any impropriety, then I would ask for a forensic audit to be performed.
I kind of feel obligated to comment at this point. Well, I appreciate all your commentary, and I do understand the process and how things work. And I stand by my comments, and time will be the telling factor in this endeavor. I have set up a meeting with the appropriate agency to divulge this evidence that is being requested or mentioned in your commentary. So I've set up that meeting. It is scheduled for December 27th. I look forward to turning over every piece of evidence that I have that my attorney, Walter Schmidlin, is currently holding. So thank you.
Minutes. All right, if none, we'll go ahead and approval of minutes on November the 12th. Everybody has had these for a period of time, so I would entertain a motion.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Wooten,
Second.
second by Mrs. Zukowski. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to the approval of minutes on November 25th. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair,
Second.
second by Mr. Johnston. All in favor? All right, discussion and adjustment to agenda. I'll start with Mr. Johnston.
None.
Mrs. Zukowski.
None, sir.
Okay, all right. At this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Dolores Gill for the best part of the meeting.
Good afternoon, Chairman Sutton, Vice Chairman Dr. Peggy Smith, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Jim Cosby, and Mr. Jim Lawrence. It's a pleasure to be before you this afternoon for our favorite part of our board meeting, which is to recognize our students for their outstanding achievement and for character education today. And with our character education this year, we have been putting a priority also on our Portrait of a Graduate, and this month, our Portrait of a Graduate trait is communication and collaborator, cooperating, working with others to accomplish goals and tasks while appreciating individual contributions. So we're delighted to be focusing in the Princeton area today, and our first recognition is a gentleman named Caden McKinley. Come on up, Caden. I'll have you stand right here. Caden is from Princeton Elementary. And I have a few words to tell about Caden. Caden is in 5th grade at Princeton Elementary School. And let me stop for just a minute because I rushed into something. Any of our parents or special guests who are here who want to come around behind our board members to get pictures, please do so. Feel comfortable to do that. It will not bother us at all because we know we want folks to get pictures of these outstanding students. So Caden, back to you. Caden is an active listener. He questions for clarification, exchanging thoughts and ideas with others exemplifies the traits of a communicator and a collaborator. And this is Caden McKinley. He demonstrates this daily at Princeton Elementary School. No matter the task, he's a productive team member. He's a strong student, determined to be successful, and he's positive for his classmates. He's a part of the broadcast team. He gets to practice his communication skills live as he shares the PES news. He serves on the student leadership team, and he is a great communicator in greeting students in the morning during arrival. He helps to fill weekend backpacks, and he is always considerate, courteous, and reliable. He does whatever needs to be done. He's friendly, and he is definitely a great communicator and collaborator. And Princeton Elementary School is proud of you, and Johnston County Public Schools is as well. And we congratulate you, and we're going to give you a hand, and then we're going to let you go stand by Miss Mary Ann so we can get some more pictures of you. Okay? Congratulations. And let you go right there on here. Next, we get to highlight Miss Carson King, who is in 6th grade at Princeton Middle High School. And Carson demonstrates exceptional communication and leadership skills. She's a natural-born leader, often assumes the role of team lead in all of the group settings. She effectively works with others and is a positive contributor to the learning environment. She volunteers to share her thoughts in class discussions. She's comfortable helping other students when they need it. She's very friendly and kind to teachers and to peers. She's a team player in the classroom and participates in extracurricular activities such as cheerleading. She is active on her cheerleading squad, represents her school well. Carson stands out as an effective communicator and collaborator among our students. Her personality, cooperative nature is always worthy of recognitions. So, Princeton Middle High is very proud of you, and so are we. Carson, congratulations. Let's give her a hand. And next we have from Princeton High School, Leo Vilches. Did I say that correct? Oh, thank goodness. Leo was selected on behalf of the staff to represent the character trait collaborator and communicator. His teachers had this to say about him. He exhibits the qualities of a communicator and collaborator by he greets folks every day, his coach, his teammates, his peers, and with a polite and warm smile every single day. He consistently inquires about how you are. He tells you to have a nice day, thanks you for any opportunity that he sees fit, and he is genuinely sincere. In class, he works well with his peers on collaborative assignments. He's always engaged in class discussion, works well with his teammates on his soccer team, and always encourages others to do their best and not give up. He has set an example for how others should be treated, and he is an asset to our school. Princeton High School is very proud of you, and we are too, Leo, here in Johnston County Public Schools. Congratulations. Go right over here. And now our board would like the opportunity to greet you, so we're going to let you come by and start over here with Miss Michelle. And this is another opportunity for any of our special guests to get some good photographs. And just a reminder that all of these students do get a recognition signed by our superintendent and a small token of our appreciation for how outstanding they are. Thank you, Chairman.
I was telling Mr. Wooten we had all Princeton today, so Princeton proud today, right, Mr. Wooten? At this time, Mr. Vetrano.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, board members, Dr. Cosby. Always nice to come before you and recognize outstanding employees. We have two such employees for the month of December. Our classified employee of the month is Ms. Caitlin Furr. If Ms. Furr will please come join me. There we go. She's coming from a different direction than our employees of the month typically come. Ms. Furr, if you do not already know, serves as the Marketing and Communications Coordinator in the Public Information Department, also a mother. She was nominated by her supervisor, Mr. Nathaniel Shelton. Mr. Shelton shared that Caitlin is an inspiration and constantly strives to shed light on all the great things the district is doing. She wears numerous hats in our department and never takes a day off. All of her work decisions are based on how will this impact the district. She's constantly looking for new ways for communication to occur with all stakeholders. No task is too big or too small for Caitlin if it is best for the district and for the students, including holding the bounce during video sessions. I'm trying to figure out what that is. I understand now. Setting up lighting, carrying plants, writing press releases, social media posts, website updates, operating the soundboard for board meetings, organizing events, and on and on and on and on. So Caitlin, Ms. Furr, we appreciate everything you do, and congratulations for being our classified employee of the month.
Thank you.
All right. And Ms. Furr, if you'll come stand on this side. Thank you so much. Our certified employee of the month is Ms. Gabrielle Jones. Ms. Jones serves as a counselor at Benson Elementary School. She was nominated by the assistant principal intern at the school, Ms. Cowell. Ms. Cowles shared that Ms. Jones works tirelessly to support the students of Benson Elementary School and the greater community of Benson. She visits classrooms weekly, and her door is always open to assist students in need. Ms. Jones greets students by name, which is important, and also with a smile, and checks in with them for those who need extra love or attention. She oversees the Backpack Buddies program and sponsors a club called Broncos Lead. She recently worked with the Benson Area Ministerial Association to organize a canned food drive. It's my understanding that over 5,000 items were donated to that cause. In addition, she and her social worker partnered with the Woodman Life chapter, number 1518, to provide 50 turkey dinners for the Benson Elementary families at Thanksgiving. So we want to thank you and the school social worker for that. The care and concern Ms. Jones shows for students extends well beyond the walls of our school building, making her a true asset to both Benson Elementary and the district. Thank you so much for all the things you do, and congratulations for being our Certified Employee of the Month. We invite both of you to greet our board. And Ms. Furr and Ms. Jones, we have some gifts for you, certificate, gift chain, and a gift card as well. Congratulations. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, we'll move to the advisory appointments. Ms. Teresa Grant.
West Clayton Elementary Principal Paige Barnes recommends reappointment of member Lauren Sabo for 3 years, term to end in June 2022.
All right, I'll let that appointment stand as our motion. And Ms. Terry Sessoms.
Principal Takisi Dunston at Benson Elementary recommends the reappointment of members Paul Boucher and Molly Herring for 3 years each, terms to end in June 2022, and new member appointments of 3 years each for Diana Diaz, Victoria Norris, and Pamela Lassiter, filling vacant seats, terms to end in June 2022.
Okay, I'll let that stand as our second. And North Johnston High School Principal Toll Avery has a reappointment of member Carmen Cortez for 3 years, term to end in June 2022. All right, we'll move on to consent items.
Need to approve.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0, Ms. Ruckus. At this time, I'll consent items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I ask that the board approve consent items Roman numeral 9A1A through Roman numeral 9A1K.
I entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Wooten, second by Vice Chair Smith. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
She's student body president of Princeton High School. She also serves as art club secretary and FBLA president. I guess I need to hold this down. She's involved in student council and beta club and safe team driving and student ambassadors. Madison played volleyball for the past 4 years. She's also selected to represent her graduating class as a junior marshal last year. And after high school, Madison plans to attend Meredith College to major in accounting. Okay. And with her is Zaffer Davis. Zaffer, just stand up. Zaffer is senior class president of Princeton High School. She's involved in a variety of clubs, including Safe Teen Drivers, FCCLA, and Beta Club. She's run indoor track and outdoor track and cross country. She represented Princeton as an ambassador at the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Seminar. She plans to study exercise science at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill or North Carolina Central University, and later become an exercise physiologist. And I want to come out and present each of you with a certificate. At this time, we're delighted to have two folks that I think a lot of, known for a long time, to be with us from the North Carolina School Boards Association, Allison Schaefer and Jim O'Rourke. So Allison, I'll turn it over to you, and y'all do your dog and pony show.
Hello, everybody.
And they're here to talk about superintendent search.
Nice to see all of you board members. Glad to have a chance to come talk to you. Dr. Cosby, on your behalf, got in touch with me about talking about our about the superintendent search process generally, and then our process. Jim O'Rourke is with me. He's another staff attorney. I'm the legal counsel and director of policy for the North Carolina School Boards Association. And we are here to support you as a board. That's what our whole function is to support you. And we wanted to talk a little bit about the superintendent search process generally, and then our services. I think I've worked with school boards for 30 years now, both in private practice when I was at Tharrington Smith, and then 21 years at the School Board Association, almost 22. So our whole goal is to help you, support you in your tasks. And one of the things we offer is superintendent search support. The first thing you need to, I know Dr. Cosby cannot stay here forever, so although I'm sure you'd like to keep him. But so the idea is how to replace him when he's done with his interim stint here. And so the first thing you need to decide before you is whether you need to do a search or not. In the past, you have done both ways. You have done searches, and you've also hired from within or hired someone you already knew. So the first conversation needs to be about whether you want to do a search or whether you have someone identified. Even if you have internal people, there are good reasons to do a superintendent search. It helps give an internal person credibility, and it's also good to look around and make sure you have the best person. So that's the first decision. So the rest of my conversation is about if you decide to do a search, and if you decide to do a search, then the issue is how you go about doing that. And what I'm going to do, we have a short PowerPoint, and I'm going to just talk to you about the different search processes, and I invite the board members to ask questions. I have been involved with, as in my current position, I've helped boards 172 times do searches, so I learn something new every time. We are definitely the most experienced provider of searches search services in North Carolina, and so I'm speaking to you as someone who has done this a lot, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Most searches follow a general process. In your book, there is a tab called, I think it's presentation, it's a presentation. It says NCSBA presentation. There's also, and I'm going to get Jim to hand this out, in your books there are two potential timelines, but I want you to also put this side to side by you when you are looking at the presentation, because this is these are some proposed timelines. There's option 1 on the front, option 2 on the back, but the steps are basically the same. And so I really want to kind of go through what it takes to do a search. First of all, it takes about 6 months to do a search. So you have right about that amount of time. And that includes some time after you make your decision for the person who you've selected to give notice and leave where they are and come to district. So actually, the search process itself takes about 4 to 5 months, and then you need some time for the new person to give notice and wind up their job and then come to work with you. So you're in a position where you have about 6 months, I think, before the start of next new year, and so the goal would be in both of these timelines to look at having someone in place by the first of next school year. The search process begins, the first step is to draft vacancies, announcements, and to advertise. The school, when we do our service, we help you draft all the documents, but you need to have a draft announcement, you need to know where you're advertising, and then recruiting happens. And that, we recommend between 6 to 8 weeks of advertising, and that's when the information goes out and people decide whether they're interested in the position. We actually have a very robust recruiting process nationally as well as within the state. We work with the Aspiring Superintendents Program. I mean, every single school board in the state is a member of our association, and we work closely with all the superintendents as well. But we do recommend about 8 weeks for advertising. If it gets, that's the best. We find that you don't get more after 8 weeks, but you get less as you start to take away from that. The lowest we would recommend is 6 weeks, and you probably get a few more folks. But basically, that's time when it's quiet and you're asking people to be interested, and you're trying to find applicants. So that's about a 2-month process right there. The next step after that, or while that's happening, we also recommend if you want to have input, it's time for community input and staff input at that time. As we actually have a process where we have online surveys for people to take and have public input. Because North Carolina laws provide that it is confidential who applies and information about the applicants, this is the time to get input before you have seen the applicants, so you can take the information from your public and your staff and consider that before you look at applicants. And so we do recommend that you, if you are interested in doing that, do a community survey. You can also do public forums, and those are optional, but again, we do recommend them. And then, of course, you can have people make public comment at your board meetings like you do in regular board meetings. So those are options for getting staff and community input. Our surveys actually have staff and community separate, so you can see the different concerns of your community and your staff, and see how they compare and how they are aligned. So, and then after you get that information, we do come back together with you and talk about the board's profile. We do not recommend that you do that before you get community input, because you want to be informed by the input that you get before you develop your profile. If you wait to do the profile, it'll delay your search a couple months if you wait to start advertising. So we suggest that the advertising goes on at the same time. That's 6 to 8 weeks. The next step is the decision you have to make is when the applications are due. So after the applications come in, then they need to be collected and organized and prepared, you need to have a process where confidentiality is respected, because it's the law. It's a criminal misdemeanor to violate someone's rights of confidentiality about their personnel matters. So that's really important. And again, that's something, if you were to choose to use us, for example, we would handle all the applications, and they wouldn't come to the board until we had them all prepared. Our process actually has an online application as well. All right, some of the things we do is we provide you with an experience chart of all the candidates. We conduct internet searches of all the candidates, every single one, to find out what's out there about them that's public, because that's information that is available and is important to know, not just what they want to tell you, but what has actually been happening in their school districts, if they've been superintendent of the year or if they've been bought out because they've had an issue. So we also collect recent test scores, and we compile a custom rating chart based upon your profile. So that takes a little while to do all that, a week or two. And then we provide the board with all of the applications. My opinion as an attorney in North Carolina for a long time is that it is the board's decision who you hire, and no one else should be screening, no one else should be telling you who to hire or making recommendations. By law, the Board of Education has the sole decision-making authority over who is the decision maker, or who is the candidate. And so we do not recommend, we don't screen. We provide you all of the materials, and you should be looking at all of the materials because you are elected to make that decision, no one else. And so we're very careful to safeguard that role for you. There are other services that'll screen and recommend candidates, and we don't think that's appropriate under our state law. And also, you're elected to make those decisions. Okay? So what we do is we facilitate the selection process by helping you draft documents, by getting you great candidates, by getting you good information, by helping you have a professional process. If you were to do it internally, it would be a full-time job, especially for the chair. So it is a very time-consuming process. We do recommend that you have, if it's not us, someone from the outside facilitating the process. Plus, in order to keep things confidential, you don't want documents coming into the central office where people's return addresses are on there, and it's just not a very secure process that way. So we facilitate all that, but again, you need someone to help you do that. And we communicate with candidates, we schedule interviews, we do the legwork, basically. And we, as I said, we have networks all across the country. We're actually part of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers, which is a group of 40 states that have superintendent search services, and we all meet together and we all work together to help each other identify candidates that are of interest. I actually go every year in February to the American Association of School Administrators meeting, the national one, and we have a recruiting day where we meet candidates from all over the country. So those kinds of things are important. But what we do is we help you schedule interviews. So you will meet, after you review the applications for a few weeks, you will meet in a closed session and after you've looked at the application and decide who you want to interview. So again, that's the board's decision. We will facilitate that discussion, but we will not recommend anyone. But we do make sure you have good information, as I said, from the internet, from what their test scores are, and as much information as we can get for you. And then after you select those folks, and we do recommend you interview between 7 and 10, about that many. Less than 7, you don't feel like you have a choice. More than 10, you're going to be overwhelmed with interviews. And so, again, every time I do this, I learn something new, and that's about what we've found has been a good number. So that's about the target you're looking for. And by the way, you're not going to get hundreds of applications. This is a very specific position with very specific credentials. And the smaller districts, if we get over 12, we feel like we've done okay. But usually a district of this size, you may see 20 to 25. Sometimes you'll see more than that. This is a very desirable place to live. It's a desirable school system. So we hope you'll get lots of great candidates, but don't expect hundreds. Plus, that would overwhelm you anyway. So, okay. So after you've selected who you want to interview, we will take those names and we would contact the people to schedule interviews with them. We do recommend a good long interview, about an hour and a half. We do recommend you have a presentation question, which is basically what superintendents do. They research data, they come to the board and they make a recommendation. So we suggest, in addition to just off-the-cuff questions, you actually have a presentation about how they can improve your school system, how they would approach a specific problem, that you give the candidates ahead of time so that that's part of their interview, because we find that to be a very telling part of the interview. So then we facilitate the interviews. We do not sit in on the interviews. Again, this is consistent with our philosophy that that we are not the decision makers. We don't want anyone to look at us and say, who do you like, who should we choose? That's not our job, and it's your job. But again, we're trying to get you good information. But we will facilitate the interviews, get people in and out, make sure that the open meetings laws are complied with, make sure that you have good questions. We'll prepare interview notebooks for you. Again, we will record the minutes for you so that you don't need anyone else but the board members sitting in. And so just so you are aware of that. So after the first interview, generally boards narrow it down to 3 or 4 candidates. If you only have 2 left and 1 drops out, that doesn't leave you a choice. So most boards want at least 3 finalists. At that point, we would recommend doing a very, very thorough background check, a reference check, a criminal credit check, and that's where you really make sure that you have people who don't have something in their backgrounds of concern, references are really, really important. One of the advantages we have is that we know people all over the country as well as all over the state, and we are very, very thorough in our background checks. We have a great background check company that works with us, a criminal credit check, and make sure that there's no surprises, because you don't want any surprises at that point. We also collect salary information, their current salary information, their current contract, their evaluations. People can give references if they want somebody to leave too, so we make sure we get their evaluations that were used before they knew they were looking. So that's important. So we try to be as thorough as possible. I think if anything, you're going to find it a lot of information. Okay. Then normally there's a second interview scheduled. Again, it's about the same amount of time, and you will ask any candidate-specific questions that you have, any follow-up questions that you would have from the process. We would present the background check information to you before that interview so that you could follow up on any questions that you have. I've been through all that. The final interviews, again, we staff that and coordinate that. And then the last step would be negotiating a contract of whoever you choose. Again, we would facilitate the conversation but not recommend among the finalists. And then your board attorney would step in and take over and draft the contract and negotiate the contract, sometimes together with the board chair, depending on how you want to do that. But I'm an attorney, but I don't represent you. You have an attorney sitting over there in the court who represents you, and he would be the one that would be negotiating the contract, because we don't represent you directly. So that's generally the process, and then everything's quiet, and the candidates are confidential until the board meeting where you announce and elect the superintendent, and then it would be a public vote. By law, it has to be a public vote, and you would announce that person. We would help you prepare press releases, and there needs to be, the person should be there so that they could be introduced to the staff and community, and then we also help compile minutes. As I said, we believe, we take the minutes so that you don't have to have an extra person in there, okay? That's a very quick overview of the process, that whether it's us or someone else, those are the kind of steps you normally see. We do, as I said, have a lot of experience, and we believe we are clearly the most experienced in the state. I've been doing this for over 30 years. Even when I was at Tharrington Smith, I did some searches. So when I went to the School Boards Association, I said, I can do that. And it helps to consolidate it because we know who's looking, and we have a process, and we have an online service and all that stuff. So we believe we are very, very good at what we do. I've been doing this for the School Boards Association for over 20 years, as I said. And Jim has been one of my attorneys working with me for the last 5 years. I've done 172 searches, is that right? And Jim has done 48, so he's been very busy with me too. And we are here to make you happy. That's our whole goal as a School Boards Association, is to make sure that you are well served. We have worked with over 79 of the 115 school systems in North Carolina we have done searches for. We currently are working with the Nash Rocky Mountain Public Schools, and just last week, Carteret County voted to hire us to help them replace their superintendent as well. So we believe we do about 70 to 75, maybe as high as 80 some years % of the searches in the state. So we also have recently completed searches, which we provided to you: Winston-Salem, Orange County nearby, Asheboro, Elizabeth City, Pasquotank, Davie, Jones, Onslow, and Warren, all kinds of different sizes and different locations, and urban, rural, suburban. We've worked with everybody. We actually did Wake County a couple years ago. We've done the largest school system in the state and the smallest, so really the whole range. So we have lawyers helping, so we try to make sure that even though we're not giving you legal advice, we do know the open meetings law, so we can make sure that you are complying with that. We know the confidentiality laws of North Carolina, open meetings and public records laws, and again, we don't give you legal advice, but we can help make sure you have a process that doesn't run afoul of the law. There's also federal background checking laws and all that sort of thing. As I said, we're part of a broad national network. We're very well plugged in. I actually served as chair of the national group a couple of years ago. I'm the oldest. I think I'm the one who's been doing it the longest of anyone in the group. Most of them are retired superintendents who come and go after 5 to 7 years, and I've been doing it for 20. So, there are some comments at the back of your material from former board members or current board members, from superintendents, just about the services that we've had, and we wanted you to have all that information. We are here to serve you. Again, our whole goal is to make you happy. We really work hard to make sure you have what you need. We do, when we charge for this, we charge a flat fee so you can not worry about calling us or asking us to do something extra. We don't want you to have a sticker shock when you at the end because it costs more than you had planned, so we like it to be predictable. And there may be expenses associated with this, like advertisements, but we will get the board's approval or consent to incur those, such as advertising costs or travel costs for candidates and that kind of thing. So that's kind of a very quick overview, and I've been talking fast. So does anyone have any questions or any thing that I have not answered already?
I guess probably I'm more curious. Well, I guess all the board members would be curious, but what is the cost?
It's $21,500,
Okay.
and that's our flat fee, and then any expenses incurred on top
Okay.
of that. So the range would probably be 25 to 27,000 total, which is better than you would find from the national search firms that do that.
And the surveys are already developed. Y'all send that out?
We have
Or-
several samples.
Okay.
And again, what we give you is drafts, just
Right.
a starting place. You don't need to start from scratch.
Right.
But you can alter our stuff any way you want. So if you
Okay.
want to alter the surveys, we have actually 2 different samples. One's more complicated, but you're probably going to get less answers. One's less complicated, and you'll probably get more answers, but you won't get as much nuanced information. But it's up to the board how you want to go about this, and whatever you want to change, is fine. We'll change it. Except we may, if you're going to do something that we think might cross the boundaries, we might get your board attorney to give you some advice on that. So.
Any other questions?
Yes, on the surveys, do you disaggregate that information? How does that work?
We provide you we provide you a report that shows what the most important characteristics of the superintendent, for example, would be, what experiences are most important, and we will take care of pulling that information to you. You will see the raw data if you want it, but we will also provide you with a report that summarizes what that is. Now, one of the things that all of our surveys have is open comments, and sometimes that's the most helpful thing that you can find, and people will comment more specifically. Again, open-ended comments. We won't summarize those because that's hard to do, but we will give you all of those comments so that you will see everything that everyone has written. When we do provide a report, we will come back before you in the public meeting, and we will provide that report, and it'll be available to the public because it's a public document, except any comments about individuals. We will have to redact those, and we will take care of that. But if it says, please hire so-and-so or don't hire so-and-so, we have to take that out because of the personnel laws. And so we'll take care of all that and provide your public with an appropriately redacted survey. So, and again, we'll take care of all of that stuff, and that's part of our service.
Any other questions? I just had one. You were talking about salaries, previous salaries and everything else, and the conversations come up, spiking is big in North Carolina right now. So if someone from a different county in the side of North Carolina comes, do we accept that responsibility of the spiking law when they become superintendent of Johnston County Public Schools?
Yes, the answer is the law says whoever who's ever been the latest employer assumes the entire amount. Now, I mean, I know we have lobbyists too, and they are in the process of talking to the General Assembly about how to ease that burden, but right now that's the law. And so what that does is, unfortunately, it handicaps the people who've been working for you the longest, or in the state the longest. You're not going to spike a pension from somebody out of state because they will not have put the time into the retirement system. And that's just an unfortunate thing. But I think that the important thing is to look at who you want, and then you can work on that in terms of salary, and that's one of the negotiated items. There may be ways to help people with their pensions that are not going to spike the system by having annuities or something like that. So that's a negotiated item that you can worry about. What we do have for you as tools is we have everybody's salary in the state. The North Carolina Association of School Administrators has just recently done a survey of every salary of every superintendent in the state, and we have that list of, and so you can see how you compare salary-wise with every single superintendent in the state. And then we will get the salaries of people coming from out of state and their contracts, and we ask them their salary and all that stuff. So again, we try to be extremely thorough, so we know what information you probably are going to need, and we can gather any more that you might need. It may be worth, when you've narrowed somebody down, is to talk to the retirement system and have some information from the retirement system about whether that person will spike a pension.
Thank you. Any other questions? A lot of information. We appreciate it, Ms. Allison.
Happy to be here.
Great information. I took a lot of notes. It's a lot for us to digest in the short amount of time. What I would like to do, if it's the pleasure of the board, is table this and call for a special session meeting on January the 6th. That's the first Monday in January at 5 o'clock to discuss this further so that we can, have time to talk about this. And we want to make sure that we get this search correct and we find the right person, and we don't take this lightly. Your information is very valuable, so we'll take that. And is everybody good on the 6th of January?
If you need any other information from us before that time, we're happy to provide it. Or if there are any other questions that come up before that time, we're happy to answer them. And if you need us to come to that meeting for some reason, we'll be happy to see if we can arrange that as well.
Perfect, thank you.
So we're here to serve you, and anything we can do to help you, and we wish you the best of luck, whether you use our services or not. We really want you to find someone that you feel really good about. It's really important.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Allison, Jim. Appreciate both of you being here. It's been my pleasure over the years to work a great deal with both of them, and they're good folks. Moving ahead, item 4, school technology resolution. You have a copy of a resolution that the School Board Association is asking school boards across the state to adopt. It relates to fines and forfeitures that were collected by state agencies over a number of years. By state constitution, fines and forfeitures are supposed to flow to school systems. But many of those state agencies collected fines and forfeitures and used them themselves. And in 2008, the General Assembly passed legislation saying that that money would flow back to school systems and it would go to technology use. About 20 million of it has done that. The rest of it is still out there. And just for our school system alone is $17 million. So you've had a chance to look at the resolution. I would recommend that you support that and adopt it.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Grant, second by Vice Chair Smith. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
We have a number of policies to be presented tonight. So David Pierce, if you'd come do that, sir.
Before you come up, David, Dr. Pierce, I would, we might be able to get 1 or 2 through before we take a break before our 6 o'clock.
Whatever you wish, sir.
Go right ahead. We'll stop you about 5:55.
Evening, Chairman Sutton, Lady Vice Chair, Dr. Smith, Dr. Cosby, members of the board, Jim Lawrence. I have 5 policies for approval and 3 for information today. So you stop me whenever I need to stop. The first policy is Policy Code 3510. It was last amended on February 9th, 2019. This policy allows for field trips that extend the instructional program to the students and organization. The trip must provide significant educational value and should be a value of the most effective means for accomplishing the instructional objectives. No additional revisions have been made to this policy since it was brought to you last month. So it would be the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 3510 as it is presented for approval.
This is an action item, so I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wooten,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Sessoms. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Pierce, I'm going to stop you right here if you don't mind, and let's take a small break before our public comments at 6. Thank you.
We ready? Good deal. All right, so my next exhibit is Exhibit 9A, Policy Code 3420, Academic Recognition. Policy 3420 was last amended on December 13th, 2016. This policy strongly encourages programs and activities that recognize and reward excellence in student academic achievement, character, and leadership. This policy has been revised since the last time that it came to you to recognize yearly recognitions by the board. And it also gave clarification on weighted honor and advanced placement curriculum courses for which grades are given was added to this policy as well. And so it would be the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 3420 and is presented for approval.
This is an action item. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wooten,
Second.
second by Mrs. Zukowski. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
Next is Exhibit 9A7, Policy Code 7220, Individual School Accounts. Policy 7220 was last amended on February 9, 2010. This policy states the board shall appoint a treasurer for each school upon recommendation of the superintendent. The policy has been revised to add the following. Any violation of this policy or the accompanying regulation 7220R may be subject to disciplinary action up to and including dismissal from employment. Any person found in violation of this policy may be responsible for repayment of the funds. There have been no revisions since the last time, and so it is recommended of the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 7220 and is presented for approval.
This is an action item, so I will entertain a motion.
I move.
Motion by Ms. Sessoms,
Second.
second by Ms. Zukowski. Any discussion?
Mr. Pierce, Dr. Pierce, I'm sorry. If there are criminal use of funds, then those are still subject to prosecution. Is that correct? That has not changed?
Yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor of this? Aye.
Next is Exhibit 9A8, Policy 4100, Assignment and Reassignment of Students. It was last amended in October 10th, 2017. This policy sets forth the expectations of student assignment and voluntary reassignment. Just so you have information, that word voluntary has been added to reassignments based on parents wishing to ask for a reassignment to another school. Additional revisions have been made based on stakeholder feedback. Applicants may complete an online application at a school campus, so we will also make available, if they want to do it online, they can go to a school and they would have access to do their application online at the school. A fee waiver form may be submitted to reduce the fee to $5 per application based on eligibility for free and reduced price school meals. Number 5, under voluntary reassignment, was revised to state, students entering 9th grade for the first time are eligible to participate in athletic activities pursuant to the North Carolina High School Athletic Association's guidelines. Students who decide to transfer back to their original base school will be eligible for sports the next sports season. Following state guidelines, if the student wishes to transfer again, they may not participate in athletics for 365 calendar days. Applicants must acknowledge that students who are granted a voluntary transfer after 9th grade to another high school will not be eligible to participate in athletic events for 365 days pursuant to Regulation Code 4100R. Children of full-time employees who are on voluntary reassignment will be eligible to participate in athletics. It is the recommendation of the Policy Review with these revisions to amend Policy 4100, and it is presented for approval.
This is an action item. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Zukowski,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Smith. Any discussion?
I have comments. Last month, when we brought this up, I had recommended that for those students on free and reduced lunch if they put in an application for voluntary transfer, that there would be no fee for them. $5 is not much to me and you. $5 is a lot to some people. I'm not really seeing the value in the $5 from those families. Additionally, we're going to let the hearing officer present the information to the board. We let the public come in and speak for 3 minutes here today. If a parent wants to come in and speak to this board about why they want this voluntary transfer for their child, give them the same 3 minutes. I mean, I brought this up last time. I think it's important. We have the time to listen. So I still make those same recommendations to this policy.
I agree with you, Teresa. I just feel like it's insulating the board from the public. And if they have something they want to say, whether it be about any issue, that I agree, we should give them the opportunity to appear before the board immediately without having a hearing officer present it to us.
Would it be out of order to ask Mr. Lawrence to speak to those issues?
They would have would be to a board panel that would review the information at that time. I do believe that we said they do have a right to be present, if I'm not mistaken, and they do have a right to be present and address the board if they wish to, but the appeal will be heard on the record.
So just
I
cut
thought
out
that
the hearing
when
officer.
I read this, yes, they could be present, but I didn't see where they were allowed to address the board, that the facts were shared from the hearing officer.
The facts will be presented by the hearing officer because the parent has already presented all the facts, all the information they have to the hearing officer, and he's made a decision on that. In order to not rehash the same thing with the board panel, the appeal will be on the record on all the facts that were presented to the hearing officer at that time, and the board will review those, which is allowable to do. It's done in a lot of places. The parent is allowed to come into the appeal panel if he wishes to, but not rehash all the evidence that has already been presented. Is what I think what the policy review committee is saying.
Can the parent make comments or answer any questions that the board panel may have at that time?
I would say so, yes, sir. Board panel always has the right to clarify something and ask questions, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I guess what we're doing, and I was absent last meeting, so what we're trying to do is the hearing officer is basically taking the step that we used to take in the beginning, and then it's coming forward to us as an appeal at that point in time, and the parent is in the boardroom. The hearing officer is the one that presents the facts to the board panel.
Including what the parent has presented as their evidence for their reasons for asking for the reassignment.
So we're not giving up the right for the parents to make any comments or anything of that matter.
No, sir. But it will not be a situation where they will once again rehash all the reasons they had before.
They made their comments to the hearing officer, but they will not be allowed to make any comments to the board unless the board offers a question to them.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, the reason for that is that you don't want them suddenly changing the reason they're asking. If they've been turned down at one location many times, that their story will change when it gets to the next level. So that's why it's done on the record of what they've already asked for. But you can, as a hearing panel, you can ask them anything about that you want to.
I'd also like to add, this is also in response to parents on the other side who have said, you know, I had to take off work to go meet with the hearing officer, and now I've got to take off work again just so that I can say the same thing again. So this loosens that requirement so that they are not required to attend that second time.
I wouldn't want to make it mandatory for them to appear, but if they want to say something to the board, I still think they should have the right to say something to the board. Ms. Fergus sent us all emails about what she wished to tell us, and probably liked the fact that she had 3 minutes to tell it to us again. Just my thoughts.
If I may, Chairman, number 11 on the back page does state that the board panel will consider the hearing officer's finding a fact, and it does say the hearing is informal and the applicants may be present, so that would set up a set where you could ask questions, I feel like. I don't know if that, I know it probably
We
doesn't-
can ask questions of them.
Right,
Right.
yes. That's the way I feel that it does.
Any other discussion?
Just really not even a point of clarification, but just information. It's important for people to have skin in the game sometimes, and people who request transfer have to provide transportation, and they have to do other things that incur financial expenses. And we really didn't think that $5 was a huge thing, but it does help. The system that we're using charges us, and that's our way of recouping some of those expenses. And there was one other point. I'll stop. There was, I know what it was. There was a difference in a school which requires an application, such as the IB program, Innovation Academy, and a voluntary reassignment where it's more convenient because the grandmother is the caregiver and she lives in this district and it's more convenient. Those hardship cases are different than applications to different programs. That was it. Thank you.
No fee for application schools.
Dr. Smith?
But there is for hardship. Is that right?
For people who are requesting voluntary
Voluntary for
reassignments.
hardship.
Hardship,
Okay.
yes.
Dr. Smith, what is the cost that we incur for these reassignment, or what you were talking about? There was a fee we pay. What does that cost? Do we know?
You're going to probably, I can just say the program we're purchasing estimated less than $20,000 for the first year, and then the price goes down after that, which was substantially lower than the current program we're using, which ends December 31st.
And substantially lower than the man-hours that are devoted on your behalf. Substantially lower.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I got to agree with Ms. Grant on the fee piece of free and reduced lunch. It's $5 is a lot to those individuals. Is there something in there that we basically will consider the situation, or we're going to charge everybody $5 across the board?
If you passed it as written, you would charge $10 unless they qualify for free and reduced lunch, in which case you would charge $5. Now, if you want to change that, a board member can make a motion to amend what's been presented to do away with that.
And this
That's the
includes,
procedure you'd need to do if you want to change it.
and this includes voluntary due to hardship.
But you have a motion on the floor, and it would take an amendment to change it.
So we have a motion on the floor in a second. Anyone wish to amend the motion?
I would ask that we amend the motion to remove the waiver.
How about if we compromise and say they can apply to have the fee waived rather than just doing away with it? Because again, I think it's important for us not to go in the hole for our program. And I think we did address families. It's for a family and not per individual. Is that not correct?
Per individual.
Per individual, okay. I thought we amended that application so that it was a family application.
Per application.
So
It is currently $10 fee per application.
if they have 3 children, that's $30.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. I thought we had amended that. My memory is not what it used to be.
If I
Just a
may,
thought.
just as a reminder of the conversation that come up, remember that some other districts are charging $30 a student. And so I think the conversation came up that for a reassignment which is not required, they can attend their home school. That's why this fee was being incurred.
In addition to that, Dr. Pierce, could you share with the board and the rest of the people who are watching in our audience some of the research that the policy committee has done to make sure that we're trying to renew our policies to better not match what other school systems are doing, but make them more effective for our school system?
So Policy 4100 has been of high conversation. As you all know, that have sat on the review committees of appeals from parents. We've done a lot of research on why appeals have been approved, why they've not been approved, on the processes that others use with school choice, things of that sort. And so for just quick memory, as you look around with districts across the state of North Carolina, a lot of them have moved to the program that we selected, which was Scribbles, because they are set up to be more functional. And so what we wanted to try to do is be more prompt in the response. By the time the parent does a request, that's why we set the timeline in here to go from May 1st to June 30th for the request, so that they are not waiting till the end. So do your request during this time, and then if they want to appeal it, I feel like the reason the hearing officer was put in place is oftentimes, no disrespect, but getting board members and their busy schedules together to do the hearings, this will allow us to have the hearing officer meet, and then prior to board meetings when you're already scheduled, we can then, if they want to appeal again, the hearing officer. And so we try to look at processes that made us more efficient and more effective. The fee, once again, was just a minimal cost of saying, if you want to do this, that was what's put forth. This system also helped us collect tuition fees for those that are out of county, which will also help our staff not having to solicit those funds. And it will also allow parents who have tuition fees, and they're screaming out there, whether you believe it or not, an excitement to pay like debit card, things of that sort, where currently they have to come to our office to do those things.
So, Ms. Grant, you had an amendment on the motion?
I move to amend the motion that the applicant can try to waive the $5 fee if they are on a reduced or free lunch program. This should help those
So
parents,
basically,
especially under
yes, sir.
hardship.
Yes, basically you'd have a $10 fee, but if they're on free and reduced lunch, there'd be no fee.
They can file a waiver for no fee.
Well, if we file a waiver, it's gonna be all approved, so I'd just say no fee if they qualify for it. Would be the same thing without having to process it.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion on policy 4100?
I would also like to amend the motion, pass or fail, that a parent, when they appeal to the board, if they would like to speak with the board for 3 minutes, just like they do in public comment, that they are given that opportunity.
I'll second that.
All right, we got first amendment is to waive the $5 fee for free and reduced lunch. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Grant, is that it? So we need to vote on that one first, and then we'll go to the second amendment. So all in favor of amending the first motion to free and reduced lunch do not have a fee when they voluntarily reassign? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 7-0. In the second amendment, Ms. Grant, if you'll recap that one for me.
Chairman, prior to that, can I just make sure the wording in this number 1 is correct? So we're moving in 1 currently under voluntary reassignment to say a fee waiver form may be submitted to waive the fee based on eligibility for free and reduced price meals.
I think the way to write it in the policy is to simply say there will be a $10 fee for families that do not qualify for free and reduced lunch.
Sure.
There's no process to have to go through. It's just automatic.
The second amendment was that when a parent appeals to the school board, the hearing officer will present the facts, but if the parent would like to address the board, they are also given a 3-minute opportunity to address, just as anyone does in public comment.
So I have a motion to amend it as well for the parents that are present to address the board in 3-minute comments. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second on the second amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you for that, Dr. Pierce.
You gotta vote on the policy as amended.
I do want to say you have one correction in number 12, if I'm reading it correctly. The last sentence, applicants who do not enrollment process, we're missing a word or two there. Assume that was complete the enrollment process.
All right, now
Vote on the motion as amended twice.
we will vote on, thank God Dr. Cosby's here. We will vote on the amendment, or the motion that was amended twice. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
All right, next is Exhibit 9A9, Policy Code 4160, Tuition of Students. It was last amended June 14, 2016. This policy allows enrollment of students outside of Johnston County. If reassignments are approved, it requires them to pay tuition. No additional revisions have been made since it was last presented, so it is the Policy Reviews Committee to amend Policy 4160, and it's presented for approval.
I would entertain a motion. Motion by Mike Wooten,
Second.
second by Ms. Zukowski. Any discussion on policy 4160? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0.
Exhibit 9A10, Policy Code 3460, Homework. It was last amended in May 14, 2002. This policy states that homework is the purposeful continuation of extension of the instructional program and shall be part of the instructional experiences of each student. The policy has been amended to set time guidelines for 6th through 12th grades not to exceed 2 hours, and a section was added describing homework responsibilities. It is the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 3460, and it is presented for information. Next, we good? All right. Next is Exhibit 9A11, Policy Code 7400, Contract Administration. Policy 7400 was last amended on December 11, 2018. This policy sets forth expectations for district-level and school-level expenditures and contracts. The policy has been amended to add that purchases should be made through the State Division of Purchases and Contracts in accordance with the division's rules and regulations as authorized by General Statute 115C 522, or an approved competitive bidding group purchasing program pursuant to General Statute 143 129. Documented informal bids must be obtained for district expenditures exceeding $3,500 and below $90,000. Facility services shall get informal bids starting at $10,000 in situations of exigent circumstances. Purchases using federal funds must also be in accordance with all applicable requirements of federal law and regulations, including the uniform administration requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards. Expenditures exceeding $3,500 and below $90,000 require documented informal bids at the school level. Any violation of this policy or the accompanying Regulation 7400R may be subjected to disciplinary action up to and including dismissal from employment. It is a recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 7400, and it is presented for information as well. Good. And last, Policy Code 1541, Role of Board Members in Handling Complaints. Policy 1541 is a new policy. This policy outlines the procedures for when a board member receives a complaint, concern, or inquiry from a parent or citizen concerning a school matter. This is off of a draft policy for the North Carolina School Board Association who just presented. And it is the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to adopt Policy 1541, and it is presented for information as well.
Any questions?
I have some comments on this one. If I look at the general statute that this references, I'm not sure where this comes from in that general statute. That's one question that I have, and Mr. Lawrence, if you want to address that, feel free. Okay. If it's not in the general statute, shall is a very strong word. That means must, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, what it says here is exactly what I would do. But I'm not sure that shall is the appropriate thing to say if it is not in the general statute. More importantly to me, because when a parent brings something, a complaint to a board member, and we certainly get them, and this is the normal avenue that I take, there are no repercussions for that parent for bringing something to a board member, the superintendent, the administrator. They have a wish for their child is not being met. There's something going on. They want it. They're reaching out. They want something to happen. More concerning to me is when we have a complaint. There's no hidden agenda here. I will say this right now. If we have a complaint about the superintendent, we have a complaint about a principal, we have a complaint about a board member, we have a complaint about a board attorney, someone that can make something happen, that there is fear of repercussions. That's what I'm more concerned about is where is a policy for that? If someone has a concern and they are afraid to bring it to someone, they need an avenue to do it. Sometimes people bring it to a board member, but then but I don't want you to share it with the superintendent, or I don't want you to share it with the board attorney or the rest of the board. Someone has to feel safe that there is an avenue to bring that about so that it can be discussed and a resolution found. And this is not just in the school system, this is in every business world in the country, that someone's fearful of harassment or repercussions or whatever, and they need an avenue to do it, whether it's a 3-panel board or whatever it is, and our board attorney would have to tell us what would be the right thing, but that's what I'm concerned about, is some of these things that are brought to a board member and then we don't know what to do with it.
It's a designation of the board. All powers and duties conferred and imposed by law respecting public schools, which are not expressly conferred, in other words, there's not a statute that covers them, and imposed upon some other official, are conferred and imposed upon local boards of education. In other words, as long as they don't do anything contrary to another law, they can have their own set of rules. And then it goes on to say, said boards of education shall have the general control and supervision of all matters pertaining to the public schools and their respective administrative units, and shall enforce the school law in their respective units. So basically, if, in my opinion, what it's saying is, there's not a specific statute, and it's not contrary to any other law, then the board has the authority to set rules and regulations that they think are reasonable. And that gives the board the authority to do that.
All right, so this, I'm asking the policy committee this, what exactly are we trying to accomplish or deter or whatever with the verbiage in this particular policy as written?
Well, I would imagine that the policy review committee, and I can't speak for the chairman, but looking at this, is that there's a procedure in place for any complaint, say that you get, or another board member gets concerning something within the schools, that instead of a board member, as we've talked about before, going on their own investigation and doing it. You could be called in to be a sitting member of a panel or something along those lines, is to report it to the superintendent or the appropriate people in the school system.
And as for consequences, there are whistleblower laws that protect people who bring concerns. I generally, in fact, just before the meeting, I asked Dr. Cosby a hypothetical. Those situations can be then addressed by the appropriate administrative personnel. It's not our job to solve the problem. It's our job to bring the concern to someone who can. Does that make sense?
Let me just comment if I could. I think the effort here was simply to put in place a policy that most school systems have in place and most boards follow. And if should is too strong a word, or shall is too strong a word, you can change it to should, which would do the same thing. But there's nothing that would force a board member to have to do it. It's just a guideline of how things should normally be handled. And what Jimmy said is true about the statute. It simply gives you as a board the authority to set policy in areas that there's not a state law. That's what it does. And there is no state law on this. There are, and some of our other policies that address some of your other concerns. There are a number of our policies that allow grievances and procedures if someone feels like they're in a situation like you mentioned, or if they're afraid someone's going to respond to them. That's totally prohibits those things. And as superintendent, if that comes to me, then it's my responsibility to follow that law to make sure that happens. And if it's against the superintendent, then anyone has a right to go to a school board member about it. This would not prevent that from happening.
Right, it doesn't. And should is a much better word than shall, at least in the world that I come from. Shall means you have no choice whatsoever, so I would not be opposed to should. And you are correct, if it was something that a teacher, principal, whatever, had a concern with the superintendent, they may take it to a board member. But then what does that board member do? And that's where I'm saying, I think we can use some help here for other things besides this, because there's no repercussions for that parent to bring something to a board member, superintendent, area superintendent, whatever. But if a principal has a concern with the superintendent and wants to bring it to a board member, then what is the board member going to do? I think it's appropriate to have some guidelines there so that people feel safe in bringing something forward.
That's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce.
Hello, everyone. We are absolutely delighted to be able to recognize Triple S and its outstanding AVID accomplishments. Triple S is our only high school who implements AVID at the fullest extent. And without further ado to hear from me, I'm going to ask the AVID site coordinator, Ms. Kay Menjivar, to come up and introduce some students and other staff members and tell us about their program. Thank you.
Hello, how are you doing? We are very appreciative of our opportunity to be here tonight to share our program with you, and especially in light of the recent recognition of the success of our AVID seniors who graduated. We do have a little handout that we can share with you that just gives some data points, some statistics about our AVID program and how it's reflective of our student population in our school. Over the years, we have tried very hard to make sure that we are representative of our student population, since we are the most diverse student population in Johnston County. And as you can see from our numbers, we feel like we've done a good job of that. We first started implementing AVID in 2007 at Smithfield-Selma High School, and so we are very pleased tonight to have some of our graduates with us who have gone on into the next step, continue their education, and now have very successful careers, as well as some of our current AVID students who can tell you a little bit more about what they do on a day-to-day basis. And so we're going to start with our current students. We have one of our AVID 10th graders, Davis Bell, and one of our juniors, Jessica Amato. So I'm going to let them, Oh, sorry. I have problems with my brain these days. I'm sorry. Yes, Davis and Jessica both are juniors. They keep me on my toes, obviously. So Davis and Jessica, if you guys would just share a little bit about your experience. Yeah, so they can hear you nicely.
Hi, my name is Jessica Amato. I've been involved in the AVID program since middle school. And I am currently now a junior in high school. I've learned a lot in AVID from visiting colleges is a main part. I've got the opportunity to visit a lot of colleges, learn about them, admissions, what they look for, which is a reason why I've become more involved in my school since freshman year. I've joined sports, clubs, and also has given me the opportunity to take a lot of rigorous courses such as IB, AP courses, honors. I've been enrolled in honors since I started my freshman year. It has prepared me a lot. I've learned a lot of skills in AVID, such as time management. I've learned how to balance a job, sports, clubs, and school with AVID, such as public speaking skills as well. I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't learn public speaking skills in AVID as well. There's so many things. It's hard to cram into it. Organizational skills is also a big one. I've learned how to be organized, as not only in school as well as out of school. Again, I've learned how to manage my time, and I learned how to be organizational. I learned how to organize notebooks. We have binder checks is also a big part of AVID. Tutorials is also a big part of AVID. And yeah, I just think AVID is just a big opportunity. It has impacted me and my high school career a lot.
Well, she really covered a lot of what AVID is about, but there's a few small things left I can talk about. No, but I've been involved with AVID since freshman year. I obviously go to Triple S, but I'm actually districted to Cleveland, so it was kind of a fresh start because middle school wasn't quite the best. But AVID really has helped me. Like she said, binder checks are one of the most important things I do. My agenda is really helpful, just staying organized. I'm in the band, so just organizing all of my time, schedules, where I need to be, what I need to be doing, what homework I need to be doing. And then, like Jessica said, we get to just visit a lot of colleges, like a lot of colleges that I've been to through AVID that honestly I never would have known existed if it weren't for AVID. So I really just think AVID is a great program to be a part of.
Tell them what a binder check is. If they don't know.
Oh, yes. So, if you can't tell, I'm a little nervous. But a binder check is basically your AVID teacher goes through and looks at your binders and makes sure they're organized. And we also have these things, I don't know if you know what Cornell notes are. They're basically notes. And you have to have a certain amount of them every week.
Tell them what's different about
A Cornell note, if you don't know, it has kind of two columns, and one, you put the notes on one column, and then you can summarize them at the bottom, which is really helpful when you're like flipping through. You can just skim that summary. Oh, these are what I need to study. But also there's a section you can write questions that you have about your notes, and it's a lot easier to study. Anything else?
They keep us entertained, obviously. So they did mention a lot of important things that I do think bears mentioning. I do attribute, I've been at Triple S for several years. I am a graduate of Triple S. And I will attribute our AVID program to diversifying our rigorous courses at our school. I've definitely seen over the years we have had an increase in the number of different students from different backgrounds taking our more rigorous courses, and we have worked really hard to align the programs within our schools to offer students opportunities to take classes like AP and IB, like Jessica mentioned. A lot of our AVID students are also taking advantage of the CCP courses. But these are not students that would have typically, a lot of times, thought that, oh, there's your traditional AP student, and that's what the AVID elective does. It provides that support to the students to help them to be able to manage some of those really rigorous courses through, he mentioned tutorials, and so that's where we really appreciate support in bringing in tutors, college tutors, to work with our AVID students to help them through some of that content. Is a really important thing. Now I would like to give our former students an opportunity to speak with you. Miriam Amato, so we have a family tradition that happens a lot in AVID over the years. We've had lots of brothers and sisters because they see the benefit and encourage one another, thankfully. So Miriam Amato and Diamante Sanders, I'll let them tell you their what year they graduated and kind of how it kind of helped them out as well.
Everyone. My name is Miriam Amato Lopez, and I was in AVID from 6th grade up until 10th grade until I transitioned out of Smithfield-Selma High and I went to middle college. So I had, quite a few years with AVID, and I was the first generation college student. I was, I'm the oldest person in my family, and so had it not been for AVID, I don't know if I would be where I'm at now. I now work as an insurance agent for North Carolina Farm Bureau, and I was able to, just learn those foundational skills that I needed in order to be successful in college that I don't know if I would have gotten from my family, just because they really couldn't help me a lot. So I had a lot of great teachers that, I still remember their names, and I still keep in touch with them, Frobrode and Sarah Anderson. In being an AVID and learning those skills, I was able to go to Johnston Community College and graduate with my associate degree there. And then I was able to go to University of Mount Olive and get my bachelor's degree from there. And then, all of those skills that I learned through AVID, I used not only then. I thought Cornell notes are really dumb, but they weren't. They weren't. I see it now, and I see that the skill, the skills that I'm sorry, I just have to be honest, but I see it now, and I look back at it, and I'm like, those, not just doing the notes, but those skills that I learned by doing them, I use them now. So, anyways, AVID really helped me build those foundational skills, and even so much now that I choose, now that I'm in a position that, I make my own money and I choose to donate to the Smithfield-Selma High School AVID class and be able to give back because I believe in it that much. And of course, apparently it's become a family generational thing because she's in it, and just seeing her, I was just like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. AVID, I'm truly think that it's a really great program, and it helps a lot of students that might not have been able to get that support somewhere else. So, yes.
All righty, everybody. I just want to say thank y'all for allowing me to be here tonight. I know you guys are on a busy schedule. My name is Diamante Sanders. I graduated Smithfield-Selma High School in 2012. The AVID program, I was there from my junior year and senior year. If it wasn't for the AVID program, I actually wouldn't know where I would be at today, to be honest with you guys. I'm the first generation college graduate in my family. I graduated from Elizabeth City State University with a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration. I currently now work at State Employees Credit Union. I'm over there by the high school. So if you ever want to come in, just stop by and see me. Hey, how you doing? Just come by. But I will say about the AVID program, the Cornell notes did work for me. It helped me get me through some of the rigorous courses through college. Basically, taking notes and writing down the questions made me actually helped me with my professors and stuff, helped me study. So basically, if it wasn't for AVID, I would not know where I'll be at today, especially with students who are trying to go to college. The practice SATs, they teach you how to do that as well, too, at the AVID program. And if it wasn't for that, like I said, I wouldn't know where I'll be at today. So I just want to say that about the AVID program.
Thank you so much, guys. Just to conclude, we wanted to give some of our other AVID elective teachers, because there's several of us. We started with one small class in 2007. We now have 2 sections at all grade levels, 9 through 12. And we started from 9th grade year and into 12th grade year. We really try to walk students through that whole college application process, because it is very overwhelming. It's overwhelming for families or parents who have themselves. And so that's where our statistics, our data came in with our students completing the FAFSA, applying to 4-year schools, and their acceptance rate to 4-year schools. So in closing, I'm going to let 2 of our elected teachers, Megan Bryant, who worked with the senior class from last year, and Elliot Frobro, who has also worked with seniors in the past as well, share a little bit with you as well.
Hi, I'm Megan Bryant, and I worked with the seniors last year. I'm working with the senior class this year as well. And I think in addition to everything that they've said, what I've really gotten out of it is not just preparing for college, but making sure that when you're in college, you can be successful. So we work on resumes, we work on applications, we work on scholarships. We're getting into that right now. We make sure everybody completes FAFSA. It's so many pieces to the puzzle. But another big aspect for junior and senior year is that we're doing research into leaders so that we can practice that process that they'll use as they continue into college, because we obviously want them to get there. They're very successful at doing that. We've had great numbers throughout the years, but we also want them to be able to stay there, feel positive, feel like they can handle it, and just be successful.
I'll close that. I'm Elliot Frobro. I teach AVID 10th graders this year, but I have taught the 12th grade elective before. And I think back to when I was applying to college. I just randomly applied to Western and University of Tennessee. And then I visited University of Tennessee. I was like, that's too big. So then I went to Western. And I had parents that went to college and could walk me through the process. So I think the biggest thing I've gotten out of it is being able to help with that process, but also seeing just the agencies that the students have with it and the persistence that they have. Because the stories that we hear on a daily basis, I'm like, man, if I had to do that in high school, I wouldn't have completed high school. I'd be done. But they go on to college, and then turn into these fine citizens like we got to right here. So AVID's hands down the best program I've gotten the opportunity, been blessed to work with. And anytime y'all want to come visit, our doors are always open. So I think that's it for us.
Thank you. 2 points. This shows you that when the rigorous expectation is there, students rise to the challenge. So that's number 1. And number 2, we have an AVID feeder pattern in Johnston County Schools. Now, there are very few AVID elementary schools in the state of North Carolina. West Smithfield Elementary is embracing that. Those students feed in Selma Middle and Smithfield Middle. They get AVID there, and they just flow right into the high school. So I know even better things are to come from this program, and I thank them for their hard work. And may I just say thank you for your hard work, all of you, Mr. Allen. And this was really a very I'm going to use this in my data class. This is wonderful, and really appreciate your putting that together for us. Okay, second up for me is another information item, exhibit number 9B2, and I'm going to do a little brief introduction about this and let the folks who actually worked on it, because I happen to be in my position on the receiving end, but this grant was a couple of years in the works. And we call it the RUS grant, which of course stands for the Rural Utilities Service Grant. And this is from the United States Department of Agriculture. And it's targeted for distance learning and telemedicine. But we're not hitting that telemedicine part too much. We're targeting the distance learning program. This is a significant award. The total grant award was $499,000, $727, excuse me. We're getting $414,000 plus of that. We're partnering with another school system, Halifax County Schools, and this will be an outstanding way to use distance learning to support the needs in our rural communities, our rural high schools, and we're very excited about it. So to give you more information about the history of it and the the grant process of it and what's required would be Ms. Michelle Turnage, she's with us, who's our technology officer, and Dr. Cherry Johnston, who actually helped write the grant. I think probably wrote the grant with input. Come on up and tell us about it.
Good evening. How are y'all doing? Do you want to speak first, or do you want to? She covered it very well, so I really don't have much more to add other than we applied for Polycom stations or units, and we were awarded for 15 schools, between high schools and middle schools, that receive a Polycom station. And with those units, you know, the opportunities are endless. We can share classes between schools. We can share teachers between schools. And we already are doing classes with Johnston Community College, and we plan to hopefully at some point share classes with Halifax. But kids can take virtual field trips. I mean, it just opens up so many doors, sitting right in one classroom and not having to go places. So we're really excited about it. Distance learning is real big in my background, so I'm glad we have the opportunity to expand it and you know, make some good ground on distance ed. Halifax they got equipment for 11 schools. They put it in elementary and middle, and pretty much, I think it was almost all their schools. And they got probably $114,000, and the remainder went to us for ours. It is a 3-year grant, so we'll start deployment like in June, July, depending on when the funds are released, or the new budget year comes. And then it'll be a 3-year process where we report back and provide reports and show progress and have a lot of good things going on by then.
Michelle, will you comment on this? Doesn't this allow us to also use equipment in a better way that we've already paid for?
Yes.
If you could expand upon that just a little bit too. Like our equipment we've already bought, but we're not using video.
Oh, yeah, the video equipment, I think it's at 8 schools, in addition to we have it some around central services. We're going to refit that. The video equipment is great equipment. There's a little bit pricier licensing with it. So I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with Zoom or had a Zoom conference, but we're adding that. We're kind of retrofitting or adding a different software on those. So we're going to use all the existing equipment we have and kind of move some stuff around and be sure we have connectivity at every school and provide a little equity across the district. It is a rural-based grant, so there's schools like S that couldn't be included in the grant, and Smithfield Middle. So again, we hope to kind of move those around once we get them in there, and that way everybody has equal opportunity. And again, we can apply for the grant every single year, so hopefully that it takes off. And admin, you got to have somebody that really wants to do it to do a good job with it. And when we start getting some teacher mentors, that it's the fire kind of spreads a little bit, and we can apply for the same grant every single year for 3 years, which is phenomenal for a school district. Do you have anything to add? I'm sure you do. She great the grant. She's very wonderful.
Good evening. In addition to the instructional opportunities that we have that Dr. Coates and Ms. Turnage spoke about, I also think it's very important that we were able to partner with another district, because when we collaborate in ways like that, we can get further than we could on our own.
Any questions or comments?
Just job well done.
They worked on this several years, and like I said, I happened to be in the seat when the grant was awarded, but they did the work. So thank you very much for listening to their presentation. That's all for me.
Hey, Dolores?
Good evening once again, Chairman Sutton, Vice Chair Peggy Smith, members of the board, Dr. Jim Cosby and Mr. Lawrence. It's a pleasure to be with you again this evening. And I do have one item for you, which is Board Exhibit 9C1. And this is a bond update focused on 2 pieces tonight. One is a cost sheet that you requested back at a November 25th meeting, as well as an update related to Princeton Middle High School. I'll begin with a sheet you should have as a hard copy in your packet, which is a cost finance sheet that I am delighted to have Mr. Moore here, who is our engineer in charge of construction. And this is his handiwork, and what this does show you, and he can take any specific questions related to this document. I'm certainly able to share as well, but this shows you the current projects that we have out right now. It shows you where we did the base bid, the contingencies, what we've actually spent, and how the money is flowing as far as some notes that we have. So again, our first sale was $20 million that came to us in June, and we began the projects that we've given you in former documents as how the bonds are sold, also the order of the projects that we have. And you can see the notes there, and at the bottom line is under the difference. At this point in time, we are $18,043 in the negative. That's, in our world, that's pretty good. We're watching it very closely. Brooks is very diligent with it. And as we told you in November, we're very much serious about delivering the projects that we have currently in place. I'll entertain any questions. Brooks can come up related to this particular part, and then I can go into our second part of our bond update, specifically targeting Princeton Middle High School.
Any questions on the bond update?
We'll continue to bring this to you as we do all the projects. Is this helpful information for you?
Yes, I appreciate this because, we want to make sure that we're looking over this as well. I know you guys are doing a great job. Mr. Moore is doing an awesome job of watching this. And in the construction business, it is moving targets out there. Things today are one price, and they could be next week a different price. But we appreciate the diligence that you guys are doing and being frugal with our money to make sure that we get these taken care of for each school that was involved, because that was something that taxpayers of Johnston County were, when they went to the polls, they wanted to make sure of. So we appreciate that.
Right. Thank you so much for those comments. Also, the next piece I'd like to talk to you about specifically related to bond is Princeton Middle High School. And I'll begin with some background information and then introduce some folks we have with us tonight as a request is being made by Princeton Middle High. Princeton Middle High School was due to receive tennis courts and bleacher work within the approved bond projects. Stakeholders within the community have requested that the most pressing need for the use of the bond funding is to improve drainage on the existing football field and to install turf, artificial turf, in order to accommodate the multiple groups to utilize this field year-round. This field is not just used for football, but for soccer and for multiple recreation leagues and other community events. The school does not have a practice field because of the uniqueness of the K-12, 6-12 environment that they are in, and it's in continual use. The school has the support in the request for an altering of the bond project that was previously approved from the Booster Club, Advisory Council, and leaders within the community. Some supporting documents that I'll go over with you in just a second are provided detailing the practice fields and the usage of the fields, and some budget proposals. There is a state contract vendor who helps with that has already been bidded out in state contract that has helped us with some pricing as we have worked with this possibility with Princeton Middle High School. And the project will entail the usage of bond funds as well as donations, both in-kind service work from local vendors as well as actual donations to cover the cost for not only making up the difference with the bond project that it doesn't cover, but also in the maintenance of this over time, if this should be approved. The project also has a commitment from the stakeholders within the school community for the maintenance of the field as needed during the life of the turf. We do have with us today, and Mr. Ellis, could you very quickly, we have Mr. Ellis here, our principal. Would you introduce the folks that you have with you today, and then I'll go through the actual documents and entertain some questions with Brooks, myself, as well as any other member like Mr. Gaster who's worked intently with this.
Dr. Joey Barber, Advisory Council Chairperson,
Mr. Kevin Thompson is representing the Booster Club. We've got ball games tonight, so our Booster Club chair couldn't be here. We've got, let's see who we got over there. Mr. Pilkington, our soccer coach. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Scott Moheiser, and he's been with the Booster Club a long time too. And Travis Gaster, our athletic director. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for those introductions. And included in your packet is a joint letter from Mr. Ellis and Mr. Gaster about the project, about their asking for a reconsideration of the 2018 bond referendum funding that was potentially to go to that area of the county, as well as pointing out the desire for there to be more community events, track meets, band competitions, and soccer tournaments, several things that are not able to be accomplished. The second page, I hope we're in the same order. If not, there's just a few pages, is a diagram that has been constructed showing the makeshift different types of fields that they utilize to practice on at Princeton Middle High, again, due to the uniqueness of this particular layout of the school. And you can see how much different areas are used in order to accommodate all the middle and high school teams, as well as, recreation. A second piece, when you go further back, that I think is very telling for this particular school is the 2018-19 school year. We do have data all the way back to actually 14-15, but this just tells you currently, in comparison to two of our neighboring schools, both Cleveland and West Johnston, the total number of events that are hosted, and when we talk about 111 total events hosted at Princeton, where we need the usage of the field, and then what is used in other schools because of the extra practice fields that they have. So looking at those pieces of data. The third page, I think the back page, is some actual pricing that we have just looked at as of yesterday with our state contract vendor. Again, there are, and we can certainly show those to you. This situation, the track is beginning to have wear and tear on it because of flooding where the water is not draining. So from a track perspective, we really have to pay attention to the drainage of that field no matter what we do. We really are going to have to take a hard look at that. There are some areas, particularly some off-site drainage, where it is coming off of the field and not draining out to Highway 70, where we really need, Brooks has already begun some inroads where we need to reach out to DOT and get their collaborative help with that as well in order to fix some drainage issues. Some of the things related to this field are not cosmetic, pretty things, but they got to be done. And that's part of it. The other situation is being able to provide a turf surface that they do not have to, they do not have the resources with a school that size to maintain that many people, that many groups, or to offer having band competitions, no matter what the weather is, to be able to come and host those types of things there. In talking with the school, when Brooks and I have met on several occasions with the stakeholders, and again, they'll entertain any questions, is their desire to bring many different groups and to be able to target not just athletics with this field, but this be a central focal point of this school that doesn't matter how many times you step on it, it's going to be okay in the long run. So that is the consideration that they would ask that you entertain. And if you'd like to take that for information and have us do some additional work, if you'd like to ask questions of any of the members of support here, Brooks, who works with it in all of our things, he's the one who gets down to the meat and potatoes about what we need to do to get it happening. I'll do that at this time, or you may take an action if you'd like.
Ms. Gill, I've had opportunity to meet with the stakeholders in the community a couple of times. I think Mr. Johnson's made a trip or two down there as well. That community has really done their homework, and we Dr. Cosby and I met with them 2 or 3 weeks ago in reference to what they put together, and there's a lot of in-kind community efforts being contributed to this project. I have to say that the most phone calls I've received as a board member has been the use of the facilities in Princeton. Maybe parents saying they won't let the soccer team practice out there, or football teams out there, we can't use the field, or, I mean, it's just, and they're trying to maintain the field because it's the only football field they got. Everybody needs to have access to it, but if we were to let everybody access the field, there wouldn't be any grass on it. So I will say this is a community effort. They've chose as stakeholders in their bond referendum money to apply it to an area that is highly used in that community, not only by the school, but by Little League, Parks and Rec. It's used by everybody. I would like Coach Gaster, if he would come explain. I know when you put the field there is upkeep, and try to explain what y'all have planned for 8 to 10 years down the road, when obviously the surface would have to be replaced.
Yes, sir. The surface that we're looking at has a 10-year warranty. And so in order to have the amount of money that we need in a fund to be able to replace this turf in 10 years, we've got commitments from all people that would use the field, our Little League, our Booster Club, and our athletic department donating money each year into a fund that could not be touched other than to replace the turf at the 10-year mark, if it needs be at the 10-year mark. But at the 10-year mark, we would have no less than the amount of money necessary to replace the turf.
I also have had the opportunity to go out with Mr. Gaster. I think it was one of the coldest days last year. We met and walked around the track and saw the deterioration of the track and how it was draining onto the track, and having to cancel track meets because of the water standing on the track from the drainage issues and things like that. I applaud you all for doing your homework, getting commitments and really having skin in the game with this as well, and making sure that you can continue this process down the road when the turf needs to be replaced. So I commend you on everything y'all have done from y'all standpoint and bringing everything to our attention, because my math is correct. It's close to a 3-to-1 or sometimes 4-to-1 based upon other use compared to the Princeton football field that you currently have.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What we need from the board is direction. If this is something you're interested in us continuing to work on, coming back to you, we can do that. Or if you are willing to say that we'd like to see this done, we can work with them every step of the way to make sure it does and bring you back what we need to each step as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I really think they've done their work. There's no question there's a need for it. I don't know how they've accomplished what they've accomplished over the years with the circumstances they've had. I go way back to the mid-1990s when we started trying to replace the old school buildings and what we've done in that community. So it's a really needed thing, and I don't believe you could better spend this portion of your bond money than you could with this.
Well, if that's what the people of the Princeton community want, then I support that. And Dr. Cosby, if you support that, that just adds to the reason why we should move forward with this. And, I'm a attendee of Princeton Elementary, 2-time Mr. B's 100 Book Club champion, so I do understand that is a tight-knit community. And while some areas have experienced growth, Princeton has managed to hang on to its small-town feel and vibe, and I certainly appreciate that. So I fully support, if this is what you want to do with your bond money and you're willing to get donations, and we have an appropriate system in place to be sure those donations do come in, then I fully support it.
I think this is a really good example for us for community input before a bond goes before the voters, that we really know what you want. I know that we operated on the best information that we had, but you all have done such an incredible job with bringing us here what your needs are, and I really applaud you for saying, I appreciate that allocation, but we really need it to go here. So let that be a lesson to us to do our homework like you've done in our next bond. So thank you so much.
And I appreciate the work that the whole community has participated in this project. And I know y'all have done your homework, and I think the main topic of the conversation is we can't make a mistake. And I know you've crossed every T and dotted every I, and I'm like Mr. Johnston, that I feel like the board needs to continue to pursue this opportunity.
So, sounds like we're all in favor, but I would entertain a motion at this time for them to move forward with rearranging their bond money to go towards the AstroTurf field.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second, yep.
Motion by Mr. Wooten, second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for what you're doing too.
And that is all I have, except to thank Mr. Moore, because I'm going to tell you, he's the behind-the-scenes person that meets with each member to make sure that all these things happen. Thank you very much. Thank you, Travis. It's been a pleasure working with this group.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break before we reconvene. At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian Vetrano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier I said good afternoon. I guess it's good evening now. 2 items for the board to share with you. The first is an action item, exhibit number 9D1. It is concerning the proposed 2020-2021 calendar. On behalf of the 56 individuals who serve on the calendar committee, and a few of them may be in here. I see April Lee. I don't want to miss anyone. Dr. Smith served as the board representative, so thank you, Dr. Smith, and there may be some others. Dr. Allen back there, thank you. We took a lot of time and effort in hearing from individuals throughout our district. Even our committee represents many of our stakeholders. We have teachers, counselors, teacher assistants, principals, assistant principals, office support, central office staff. We also have students, high school students who sit on this committee, parents, and members of the community. We met several times beginning in October and reviewed 26 sample calendars which were submitted. Of those, the committee decided to place 4 sample calendars on the website. In past years, we have displayed 3, and we were just having a lot of trouble with only identifying 3, so we kind of veered away from past practices, and we put 4 out there for our stakeholders to consider. And then we asked them to participate in a survey. And Michelle, do you have access to there's a link on there. Oh, well, here it is right here. Thank you. So if we go to the second slide, and I may have this, Michelle, sorry. You can see that more than 2,100 individuals participated in the survey. But also take in mind that an individual could represent a group of teachers or a group of students or a group of parents. So we know we had more than 2,100 responses, but that 2,100 could represent even more than that. And this graph just gives you an idea. You can see 67% represented parents and about 7% represented students. So it's nice to know that we have 7% of our students who really took time to look at all those sample calendars and provide us some feedback. And then, of course, we have our section of employees. And then we have a group that they may not be a student, they may not be a parent, they may just be a business member who they also want to contribute and have input to the calendar that the school system selects. This gives you an idea of the representation. And so you can see of those who participated in the survey, we feel it was mostly evenly distributed. There wasn't more feedback coming from one level than another. And so when you look at the most preferred calendar, sample C, 35%. And so what the committee did is we took sample C, and that's where we began our process. The least preferred calendar was sample D. And I know that you do not have those samples in front of you, but sample D was actually the 4th calendar that the committee decided that it was important for us to put out there. And that's the calendar that had the first semester ending after students return from the Christmas break. And so you can see that we felt it was important to get that input from our community, but it was the least preferred calendar. And then there were thousands of comments also submitted in part with this survey. And so what we did here is just captured some of the common themes that we saw. So for example, stakeholders said they're very much in favor of school ending in May, but of the choices that were displayed, they were supportive of the June 3rd or 4th ending. They were also in favor of the first semester ending before Christmas, but they do continue to be concerned about the inequity in the number of days per semester. So with the calendar that's being presented to you, the first semester is shorter than the second semester. However, even with this concern, they still voted by far to end the semester prior to Christmas break. So I think they'd like to have both, but given the limitations in creating, the legal limitations that we have in creating a calendar, this was their preference. They prefer to have spring break after Easter. Overwhelmingly, the 2 weeks of Christmas. I think the committee knows that it would be somewhat dangerous for us to try to tamper with the traditional break there. And then also we heard from many that they prefer the work days are dispersed throughout the year, preferably one per month. But it's difficult to do that. And as we discussed in the calendar committee time and time again, the more work days you put in the school year, you either have to start earlier or end later in order to do that. And so, unfortunately, sometimes, and you'll see this with other districts, they'll have more work days outside of the school year for students. But that's just based on your start date and your end date, according to how many you're able to get inside the school year. But they did have preference in that they would like more work days at the beginning of the year instead of the end of the school year. And then work days being placed on Mondays and Fridays, stakeholders. And again, if you went back to that first slide, you can see that 60% of the stakeholders who participated in the survey represented parents. And so that was important for them as well. And that makes sense when you're thinking of parents maybe wanting to extend their weekend. So after reviewing feedback from this survey, and again, we have 56 members on the committee, so they also hear from their stakeholders. We came back, we had much discussion, and we developed a proposal for your consideration and approval. I do want to just give you some general reminders, and you've obviously have approved calendars in the past, but just so you know, and so the public listening knows, there are general statutes which outline the creation of a school calendar. And so school may begin for students no earlier than the Monday closest to August 26th. School may end for no students no later than the Friday closest to June 11th. It must have a minimum of 185 student days or 1,025 instructional hours. It must have 11 holidays and 10 annual leave days, and then ultimately all of those various days added together must equal 215 days. So I would like to highlight some of the sections of the proposed calendar. Prior to the first student day, there are 8 work days. That's based on feedback that we heard from our stakeholders. The first day of school in the calendar is Monday, August 24th. There's a holiday on September 7th for Labor Day. And you do have the proposed calendar as one of your links in the board packet. There's an early release day on September 25th. The first 9-week period ends on October 22nd with a work day on the 23rd. There's a holiday on November 11th for Veterans Day. There continues to be much support for the 3-day break at Thanksgiving. So the committee identified the 25th as an annual leave day, followed by the holidays on the 26th and 27th. The second 9-week period and first semester ends December 18th. There continues to be much support for the 2-week break for students during the Christmas holidays. There's a holiday on January 1st for New Year's. School is closed on January 18th for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. An optional teacher workday on February 15th. And I'll stop right there and correct my own notes here. I said optional because right now on the proposed calendar, all of the work days are optional, but the superintendent will work with principals and cabinet and area assistant superintendents in designating the required work days, and that will be based on the professional development needs for the upcoming school year. So in case you're wondering, are they all optional? There will be some required work days built into the calendar. The third 9-week period ends March 12th with a work day on the 15th. Spring break is April 2nd through the 9th. There's a holiday on May 31st for Memorial Day. And then the last day of school for students, June 3rd, and that allows time for high schools to prepare for graduation on June 4th. And then there are 3 work days at the end of the school year. The calendar has to have 5 proposed inclement weather days, and those would be October 23rd, December 21st, February 15th, March 15th, and April 9th. So again, those are highlights of the calendar. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have, but I also want to thank the 56 calendar committee members that we have, and I certainly appreciate their time and effort in preparing this proposal for you this evening.
Mr. Vetrano, I have a personal opinion and a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The first work day is August 12th. I know that this year we had several work days before teachers were required to come and meet with their principal. As a former principal, it was important to me to set the tone for the year. The first day, everybody came back. And I don't know if that's something that the superintendent describes to them as important, or who decides that? Is that a school by school? Is it a district thing? But to me, that first day of school says what you expect, and to wait until they've been there 3 or 4 days and everybody's kind of loosey. I like having the return on that first day with everybody.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your comment, and absolutely. Because when we're requiring work days, we would then be determining whether it's a school-based required work day or a countywide work day where countywide professional development may occur.
Comment. So, Mr. Vetrano, when I look at this, 35% wanted C.
Yes, ma'am.
33% wanted B. Not a lot of
Very similar.
Not a lot of difference there. And 31% didn't want either one of those. So we're really like, a third want this, a third want that, and a third don't want either one. So since A and D obviously are not going to get that calendar because that's split, if that 31% were presented with B and C, I wonder if it would make a big difference between the B and C.
Right. It's a great question. And B and C were very close with some differences. And so what you're seeing today is not sample C. It's sample C modified based on all of those comments that I just shared with you, so that if we, and the committee feels as though if we were to put this proposal out there now, it combines enough of C and B that it would be the true leader among all of them. And so that's why we took C and we started from there. But we knew very early that we just couldn't take C just because it had a higher number of percentage and present C to you as is.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So it truly is a BC
It
combination.
is a combination. We've merged the strengths of the two calendars together to put something that we feel most stakeholders would support based on the summary, based on the common themes.
I know in the past, last year, I brought this up about trying to get to one calendar across the county because of many parents working in one district and the kids going to another district. Is this something that you guys have thought about? You just put one calendar rather than multiple calendars out there where everybody knows, what days they're going to school. It's been much confusion out there in the past about this. So where do we stand with that?
Right. So this year we actually have 3 calendars, which is less than the year before. So we're moving in that direction. But we still have the early college CTLA calendar that they operate based. They really merge their calendar more with the community college's calendar, because of the students that take courses between both. This year, we had one restart calendar. And so if I'm hearing you correctly, I think what you're saying is it possible that this calendar would be followed by all of those other schools, maybe with the exception of early college CTLA?
Well, let me jump in there. If you can. We're working on two things, and we're trying to do them simultaneously. We'll bring to you in January. The first one is transportation schedules. And our folks have really, really worked hard looking at some really good options. And we have what we think is a really, really good option, but we want to run it through all the stakeholders, the principal, all those folks. We plan to do that at the January meeting with the Teachers Advisory Council also. And if we do that, it will almost mandate that we have one schedule.
Okay. And I would just like to tag on what you said. We've had several situations this year where we have staff members at one school and their children attend, say, a restart school, and when they are out, that staff member is not able, they're having to arrange for somebody to pick those children up. So it really is an issue.
And I think it was helpful on the committee, the calendar committee. We do have some individuals representing some of the restart schools as well, or some of those who actually have followed the restart calendars in the past. Mr. Allen from Triple S, Ms. Sharon Bryant, principal at West Smithfield, a restart school. She participated in the calendar meetings as well. But thank you for your comments.
This is an action item. I would entertain a motion to approve the calendar that is before us for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Dr. Smith, second by Ms. Zukowski. Any discussion, further discussion?
I just want to thank every person who participated in the calendar committee. That is a lot of hard work. There's a lot of asks that get put to those individuals, and to make a calendar and trying to answer all those wants is a feat. No, you're Santa Claus. It's a feat in of itself. So thank you for your work that you put in there.
Thank you. And I may have missed some as I was scanning the room, but thank you to everyone who served on that committee.
I would also encourage our citizens to contact their legislators to get them to be more flexible with our calendar. If we had 1 week at the beginning of the school year instead of the 26th, if we could start the 20th, it would solve every problem that we have with equal semesters, getting out before Christmas. We have to do that in order to honor our students who have been accepted and start. They graduate in December. They start college. If we go back after Christmas, they can't start.
Yes, ma'am.
But our legislature right now has locked us in, and we just need to get some calendar flexibility. That's all we're asking, is just flexibility. And we talked a little bit about maybe next year. I went to Dr. Cosby and said, what are the criteria? And we need to start early thinking about maybe modifying the district calendar to more a former year-round calendar, enhancement calendar, or something, so that we have equal semesters and students are not penalized. Principals have to be all kinds of creative. Mr. Allen was on the committee, where they have not all, but as many as you can. You put your heavy hitter courses in the second semester. Well, that just means overload for students. It just doesn't balance, and a week would make all the difference. So if we could just have the citizens of Johnston County and across the state go to the legislature and say, please, be reasonable about calendar flexibility.
And our House members have been very supportive. It gets stuck in the Senate, so the Senate is where you want to focus your efforts.
I echo what everyone said up here about this, and I know that talking to Ms. Lee, who's on the calendar committee, that some districts are challenging the state in the calendar, and they're starting earlier than what the state mandates from that standpoint. I haven't seen or heard of anything where they got any recourse from the state or whatever the case may be at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's something that we have to do as well. Is think about what's best for our students and our staff in Johnston County. And I agree, we have to have the semester end before Christmas so that, we have some that go to the military and they're going to fight for our country. And we have some that are going on to college. And Dr. Cosby, we got 5 or 6 schools having their mid-graduation next week. 4. So, we can't penalize them because of what the state is mandating us to do as well. So I agree. We need to reach out to our senators across the state to let them know that this is very important to us. And you guys are doing a very good job of assisting us the best as possible with the calendar. So thank y'all. Any further comments? If not, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Vetrano.
Thank you. The next item, exhibit number 9D2, is presented for information. If you recall, at the last board meeting, Dr. Cosby said that he would begin sharing with you each board meeting an update on the local budget. Art Stanley, our finance officer, he's currently out of town, but he and Tabitha Lee, finance director, worked on providing the update that you have before you on our local current expenses and capital outlay as of November 30th. That's important to know. The first page of the local budget expenses shows the current budget, the year-to-date transactions, any escrow amount, and then balance of for each of the descriptions listed. And then that second page identifies sources of revenue, which include the county appropriation, printing services, fines and forfeitures, and then miscellaneous revenues such as fees that we assess for transcripts and ID badges. And then the other document you have is the capital outlay budget, and that identifies also the current budget, year-to-date transactions, and the remaining budget. And there are a couple of items on the capital outlay that you'll probably see in red. Your consent, one of the consent items, is my understanding from talking with Art earlier, one of the consent items that you approved will handle that, those items that were in red. And Art is not here, but we have Tabitha Lee here with us, and Dr. Cosby and myself, if you have any questions about the information that's shared with you.
I just want to thank you all for putting this together. This was something that we requested last month. It's very clear and concise, so thank you for putting this together.
Tabitha gets the credit.
That's right. I just stand up here. You're right, Dr. Cosby. Art, Tabitha, they did the work.
And we plan next month to also bring you similar reports for the federal and state. But prior to that next meeting, after closed session, I want to do a little training session with you so you'll know what you're seeing. Okay? We'll plan that.
Any questions on this information?
And yes, we're still short. This is not the new budget. This is where we were. We're still asking. We haven't heard yet. So
those are all the items I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Good evening to you all, Chairman Sutton, Lady Vice Chair Dr. Smith, members of the board, Dr. Cosby, and our Mr. Jimmy Lawrence. Hello to you. I bring to you several exhibits. The first is exhibit number 9E1, and it's your annual dropout update, and Dr. Amanda Allen will join me here at the podium. And what I'd like to say before she shares this information with you is that we do want to acknowledge our school social workers, our counselors, our student advocates, all of those social workers, I think I said that, but all of the wraparound service professionals who help to retain our students and even go out and get them when we know that they are capable, but they may be missing. We want them back with us so that they can be educated. So we do want to give them their due. Dr. Allen.
Okay, so I just want to take you through an update of our data, our complete data from last year. We gave you a sneak peek of kind of where we were trending. But just as a reminder, a dropout in terms of what we report to the state is a student who leaves the school for any reason before graduation or completion of a state-approved educational program to transfer And these are students that are not transferring to another school, whether it be public, private, or homeschool. We've got 5-year comparative data for you. This is looking specifically at your dropout rates. And you can see that this year our dropout rate is at 1.82, up from our rate last year of 1.19. But with our increase in student size, although our numbers are higher than they were in 2014, 2015, you'll see on the next slide, our rate is not higher than we were then because we're steadily growing in population. Also, one note, our poor state contact, I've been bugging her for the state numbers and they're not quite in yet. Here are our 5-year dropout numbers in comparison in terms of our specific children. We're up to 215 dropouts last year, which is not a number that I'm proud of. However, I do know the amount of work that went into all the students that we did get to graduation and that we've still got within our schools now, and I'm extremely proud of that. We have dropout information based on these categories. You've got our English language learners, that was 42 of our dropouts. Exceptional children, 62. AIG, which is a category we've not had up previously, which should have been noted, 6. And then the majority of our dropouts were male, but there is still 72 who are female. We also have this by grade. I thought it might be helpful for you to see last year compared to this year, so I left that data there. And it looks like we've got the same trends in terms of when the dropouts are occurring. And in speaking with some of our counselors, it was noted that in the 10th grade, this is when you get more stringent requirements to move on. You only have to have 6 credits to move from 9th grade to 10th grade, and none of them have to be a specific English or math. But in 10th grade, you've got to have 13 to move on. One has to be your English 1, one has to be your math 1, which is a much harder hurdle to reach for some of our students. Here's our dropout by age. Of course, we shouldn't have dropouts at 15. However, if we physically can't locate a student, that sometimes occurs. And our social workers work diligently when our children are out of school, and they shouldn't be. But you can see how the trends are right now. Dropout by race. This is similar to the trends that we had last year. Again, while I'm not happy to see higher numbers, the next slide shows where we are in terms of percentage by the district. And this actually supports closing the gap that we had. It's still not quite in line with where our percentages are, but I want us to continue to be closer mirroring what our population actually consists of. So our distribution was slightly better than it was last year in terms of ethnicity and race. Here are the retentions of students who dropped out. We had 3-year comparative data for this, and this is a little bit difficult to see. I apologize for the numbers getting small, but these are the grades in which students who dropped out were retained. So you see we've got the most retentions in 9th grade from these students, and then the second being 10th grade, which we did talk about that stringent requirement. And then I wanted you to also see where their frequencies of retention were. 75 of these students were never retained, but 77, which is our leading number, were retained once, and then 52 times, and then 13 of them were retained 3 times. Dropout by reason, I wanted to give you this screen because this is the traditional screen that you get, but I'm going to give you what I consider to be a better image next. Last year when I was standing in front of you, I was very new to this role, and I didn't have a huge understanding of how they were coded the way that they were. So I made it a goal of mine to meet with every single student advocate at the end of the year, and we spoke through every single student case of what happened, and we tried to really pinpoint what reason we should give, and we made it consistent across the district. So that's how we came up with our codes for this year, and you can see by this pie chart exactly where our percentages lie. Our largest reason, or our greatest reason, was lack of engagement, and we chose to use this code if a student had all the supports in their favor at home, at school, everybody was working in their corner trying to get them to go to school, but yet they still were not going. Work and employment, that includes 2 dropout codes that we use. One is a requirement to work in order to live and sustain, and the other is just choosing work over school. Those are combined just for the sake of this presentation. And then the third leading cause is unstable home life. That includes homelessness, but also a home life that's kept them back. Do you have any questions? Or if you have any, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes, so do we have any idea about why these numbers have increased?
I know that we had, when I was looking at our data overall from last year, 45% of these 215 students chose to participate in our choice hubs in some capacity. And then we had a large number of what we call no-shows. You know, we've got them at the end of the school year, and then we come back, and then we've got these huge numbers that everybody tackles and tries to find these youth. Many of them were expecting to come back to the alternative education that we'd offered last year. I don't have an exact number for you, and I apologize for that, but it's difficult to track that down specifically. But that's one contributing factor. And I think another factor, and this is based on information that I received just listening. When you have alternative teaching like we had last year, you are loosening a rope that's sometimes hard to tug back. So I think that plays into it as well. So we had youth that really would have taken advantage of it if they'd had the opportunity, and some that we might have.
But the numbers that jumped up were 2018, 2019, and though we had choice hubs at that time.
So 2018, 2019 is what I'm presenting on tonight, and that's because, so here's another thing that I should have, that's not the screen I wanted to leave this on, sorry. Here is another thing I wanted to make sure that you knew. We're allowed to pull back dropouts up to the 20th day of the school year. So a lot of these kids were planning to come back. And a lot is a very subjective term. I'm not sure how many. But they were planning to come back, but when they learned that, okay, I'm not able to keep this job that I've already secured for my daytime employment because I'm going to have to be sitting in a classroom for that time, this isn't going to work for me right now. Some of whom may have chosen to return since then. But if they aren't with us by the 20th day, then they're considered a drop for us.
So those dropouts, so the 2018-19 dropout number, that includes students that were enrolled for the 2019-20 year?
They may have intended to be enrolled but not shown up for this school year.
Okay, so the numbers that we're looking at, the 2018-2019 numbers, include students that should have started, I mean, those numbers from 2019-20 are counted in?
Well, those just aren't counted against 1920 because they never sat in a seat this year. We called them, we said, you need to come to school. School started, and they're like, you know, XYZ, this has happened. I'm no longer going to come to school. So they would have been with us. We're already seeing those numbers from ways that things were changed this year because they chose not to come back.
Okay.
Right. Is that what you... Yes.
The one question, you made a comment about, you know, increase in students, you know, our numbers across the county. So if we look at the 2017, 2018, and we had 135, go back that one, had 135 dropouts, right? What was the percentage? How does that correlate to the percentage of the increase of 18, 19? Is it still consistent, or was it a spike?
It's still a spike because the rate last year we were at a 1.19, which equates how many youth we actually had in our schools, and this year we're at a 1.82. So there's still a significant increase.
Do any of these students, like the group that didn't show up for school this year, are any of them that you know of, are we tracking if they're getting their GED? Do those numbers go into this? Or if they're currently getting their GED, it doesn't count toward our dropout rate? How does...
Those numbers do go into this. If a student chooses to get their GED, it does count against us. But we continue to track them because if they complete some program successfully, it does not count against our graduation cohort.
Do we know how many students of the 215 are currently pursuing a GED?
If I had to give you a number, I would say it was under 20.
I'd try to put this in a little bit of context for you. I remember in the 90s, this would have been, that top line would have been 6 or 7%, not 1 point something. Okay, so you have made tremendous progress. And when you consider everything that many of these students are dealing with, and which is becoming more and more, it's really amazing what you've done. I had nothing to do with it, but it's amazing what you've done. And I would celebrate that rather than quibbling over whether maybe, there's a few more. Because it's going to jump around year by year, and these folks can do everything they're doing. There's just some of them that no matter what you do, you're not going to be successful with, no matter how hard you try. And we lament over those, we cry over them, but you just reach a point when you're saying you've done all you can. And so they've really done a good job. I just hope we can hold it where it is.
Oh, yeah. We're looking to go down.
Well, if you do.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that it sheds light on, though, is, we put the choice hubs in place to try to retain those students that needed to work. And when we took the option away, they did what they said they were going to have to do, and that was work and not go to school. So budget-wise, you get to the point where you cut people or programs, and that was a program that we cut in effort to get closer to the budget that we were given. We're sitting in a similar situation today where it's, if we're not given the extra money for the budget, it's cut programs or people. This is a great example of what cutting programs does.
And I feel like I should note that we also lost evening academy options in a lot of locations. So it wasn't just choice hubs. That was just what came to mind immediately.
Right.
And that's a good point. How many evening academies do we have now operating?
I know of one. I haven't asked to hear if anybody else has been able to start one.
They have the staff to stagger the later arrivals because they don't have the extra money. But I can get that information for you. Well, I think sometimes people think we just come up with programs because it sounds like it's a great thing to do. But when you have numbers that show that kind of an impact, it really says something. And people need to be aware that, yes, we can cut. We can trim our budget, we can get down to the bare minimum of what it takes to run the school, but there's a cost every time that we do that, and every student that we lose to being a dropout is a big cost. One student is a cost. 215 students is huge. I know they weren't all related to this type thing, but that was a significant portion that was due to work. So thank you for sharing.
And it's not just that, and to your point, it impacts our community. And I really, really feel as an educator, it's our job to produce productive citizens to help our community to continue to grow. And so again, with the budget being cut, it's sad that the evening academies and other alternatives are not there for our students.
And I want to thank you for putting all this together so that we can see it. And I know that your counselors and your social workers are very dedicated people. They are working hard.
They still work with those 215 anytime they can to make sure they're on the right path.
Just one final comment. I echo everything that was said. Well said, Ms. Grant. And you guys are doing a great job, but it goes back to the state budget as well. If they would give us the opportunity to bring more counselors in and more people to assist us at the school level, we might be able to assist these students and make them into the citizens that they really need to be. So it's a domino effect, and we get the results of it from the state budget side. So that, again, that's something that we need to talk to our legislators and senators about is basically, hey, here's a direct impact of why we need more school counselors, nurses. They do a fantastic job every day, and they're pulled to the extremes every day too. So we thank y'all for what y'all do on a daily basis.
Couple of quick statistics before we tie into this. Last year, Johnston County had the 10th best graduation rate in North Carolina. Okay, with those numbers, 10th best. And of the large school systems in North Carolina, you had the best graduation rate in the state.
I have one more question. EC children can stay in the school system till age 21, right? At what age, if they leave the system, are they considered a dropout?
I don't have my manual in front of me. Yeah.
That's the large percentage who stay in to the 21, but they're not eligible for the diploma. I think you have to go on the diploma track to get a dropout.
Right, and I know that when I looked at these names and their statistics, it wasn't our life skills moving to 21 that were on there.
And they actually can stay until, if their birthday is in November and they're 21, they can actually stay until they're 21 plus, till the end of that year. They don't have to go home in November when they turn 21. They stay the rest of the year.
So diploma track would be probably 18 is, if they're on the diploma track, it would generally be an 18-year-old type.
Well, it all depends on what they've completed and what they haven't, because if they're finished with all their courses, then it won't count against us.
It's possible for all of them to graduate before we have a plan. Like for occupational study students, they have to get so many service hours. So depending upon that, sometimes that lets them go an extra year, but most of them graduate within 5 at max. Thank you.
I would be interested to see what identification our EC population dropout, what services they were receiving when they were in our school system.
I can get that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Allen, if you'll stay here, because Exhibit 9E2 shares with you some information about co-located mental health services. And to Dr. Cosby's point, there are a myriad of reasons why students drop out of school or have trouble in school. And so what we want to share with you this evening is that while we have the ability to really provide services, we do have experts here to provide services to children or young people who have mental health issues. The numbers are growing steadily. And so we're providing for you an exploratory proposal for your review. So Dr. Allen, if you'll share that for us.
Thank you. So, as Ms. Roberts mentioned, we do offer a lot of services to our youth, but one thing that we don't do is offer therapeutic mental health services, because that's not within our realm of work. We don't claim to do such. That's not where we want to go specifically with our job roles. But if you've ever tried to find a mental health provider in certain regions of your district, you would know that it is very difficult at times. And then beyond that, if your availability doesn't line up with a therapist, you're less likely to get services that are very needed. One thing that we're proposing to do to help close that service gap is to have co-located mental health services. And what this would be this would entail a space in each school that's confidential, each school who wants to participate. And in this confidential space, a therapist would be able to get permission from parents, make sure that they're consenting to practices, serve our students within a scheduled time that coincides with what the school agrees upon, and allow them to return to class afterwards unless it was an after-school appointment. This would be a service that was billed to the parents, and if the parents don't have insurance, there's also funds available in different ways for those parents to be served, not school funds. but mental health service funds that would be the provider's responsibility to find. What this would cost us would be space and cooperation, because planning and scheduling does take a significant amount of work. I've already done a tentative poll, and I've gotten responses from 25 principals. Of those 25, 23 are interested in having such services on their campus. 2 were a maybe. And David Allen has had co-located mental health services on his campus for the past 3 years. So I know that we've already done this in one location. Every time that I talk to Mr. Allen and his staff, there's nothing but, why aren't we doing this everywhere? This is wonderful. You need to get with this specific agency, which we have to be, ethical. So I've put together a request for proposals. And of course, it's at your discretion if you choose for this to move on, but we do have stringent protocols that we would need to go through to make sure that we were vetting agencies and that we continue to vet agencies' practices to make sure that we're only serving our students in the best possible manner.
Yay.
Can you-
Thank you. Mr. Allen made a comment. He and I were talking about a year ago, and he is so right. Many of the children who need these services are not able to access. And to say, go down the street, first of all, to find a mental health provider is a feat in and of itself. Second of all, to find one that takes your insurance. To ask those children or their families to make that happen, you might as well be asking them to build a spaceship and fly to the moon. So thank you for making this happen.
Absolutely. I echo everything Ms. Essam says. I'm curious, can you educate us a little bit on the protocols that you're talking about?
The protocols in terms of what this would look like in day-to-day in the school, or protocols for vetting?
For vetting
Vetting?
the services,
So
yes.
the RFP, I've got to tell you, is a bit lengthy. I recall because I typed it. But it's taken protocol or RFPs or requests for proposals, I apologize, from well, I don't want to use the acronyms because I don't know what they stand for off the top of my head. Alliance is our Medicaid manager for this region, and it's taken protocols that they use to vet individuals. It's also taken templates such as what Durham Public Schools has used. We've combined both of those, and we've also vetted it to make sure it meets the criteria that we have for an individual to be in our school. It's making sure that they're using evidence-based practices, that all of their professionals are licensed. They wouldn't be just supervised by a licensed person. They would be the licensed individual, that they would adhere to the protocols that are agreed upon between both parties, and just making sure that we're doing everything in the most sound manner. Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? I would recommend that, if it's a pleasure of the board, but it's my recommendation, we take action on this tonight to go ahead and let them get the RFPs out, and due to the private mental health options and things of that nature. So do I have a motion for that?
I make a motion.
And I second.
I think the entire board had the second. Michelle, you pick who you would like. I think, all right. So we got a motion and a second to go ahead and let you guys go move forward with this RFP. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Allen, thanks for your hard work.
Mr. Chairman.
I want to thank our social workers, counselors, nurses, guidance counselors for all of the work that they do for our students.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make one more comment. I'm going to backtrack one more time, because these numbers on this dropout, when you think about the choice academies, it just breaks my heart. Because if I look at psychological, emotional, lack of engagement, discipline, and academic problems, all those type things were also what we were trying to reach with Choice Academy. And that's another 32%, which is 68 children. 15% for work was 32. That's 100 kids that we were potentially reaching with these choice hubs. If you take that 215 and subtract that 100, if we could have kept those 100, we're back to where we were before the choice hubs. Again, it just breaks my heart to see that and see what an impact a decision like that can make. I know we had to do it. And if we don't get the extra money for the budget, we're gonna have to do some other very hard things like this, but it comes at a cost. And everybody needs to see what that cost is.
And Ms. Grant, just to piggyback off of what you just said, I agree with all of that. You know, someone may look at that and say, well, that's just 100 kids. You have 37,000. That's just 100 kids. But if you are the mother of one of those 100, that one kid is your world. So thank you.
And they're our world too, so we're here for them. Our last item for you is an update on our equity efforts, and I'll ask Ms. Dee Edmondson to join me here at the podium. Our equity work is based on the acknowledgement of biases, but it's driven by data associated with student achievement as well. So as we continue the journey on equity or towards equity, what I'd like to do is introduce to you or ask the members of the committee who are here with us at this late hour to just stand, because we do have a district-wide committee. So those of you who are on the committee, if you'll just stand, please, just so you can be acknowledged, because they work very, very hard on this initiative. And you'll see their names and pictures in the PowerPoint as well. But, you know, what we want to tell you is that as we continue this journey, we will only see a favorable outcome if we are intentional and if we are willing to communicate. So we're pleased to bring you this update on our equity work that you've given us the privilege of leading. Our mission and vision support the ultimate goal of increasing student achievement in a safe environment that values equity. And where caring adults believe that all students can succeed by developing effective strategies for overcoming biases. Our work not only involves working to prevent inequities, but addressing perceived and actual instances. So Dee is going to share with you a few specifics.
Oops. Did I mess something up? Yes, please. When it comes to our ongoing equity journey, one of the things that we have, we've been various places. We have been afforded the opportunity to share, discuss, and utilize strategies that can be helpful as we focus on understanding equity, implicit biases, cultural awareness, and student achievement data during our K-12 principals meeting, data managers meetings, and other meetings. We have also visited various school systems and just tried to find out information when it comes to equity about what they're doing. We've collaborated with our administrators. As you notice, you see a bunch of the administrators working on those various strategies. We have held privilege walks for administrators, select schools, and our own department. If you'll notice the faces, I love the expressions that they have. Sometimes I did ask, I said, I think they're saying, what are we doing? Do I really want to do this? But they were in deep thought. And Anna Milazota, which is another one of the equity team committee members, she was the one that led our department privilege walk. It is imperative that we continue to look at the strategies that are beneficial as we seek to gain a better understanding of what is needed to remove barriers which hinder us from closing the achievement gap and increase student achievement.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to take you through a very, very brief hands-on exercise. Self-reflection is key to progress in the journey to equity. So the privilege walk is one of the hallmarks of our journey because it demands self-reflection, which is where everyone must start if we are to make any progress. So in the interest of time, we're going to engage you in a brief privilege talk. Dee will give each of you a bag of stones, and as you listen to the questions, please pay close attention to the prompts and be enlightened and ready to act upon your newfound knowledge.
Okay, our privilege talk. Put yourself in the shoes of a former student or a student that you know. Each person, if you will, pull out 3 stones and place them in line. And then you will follow the directions that I give you. Okay. If each person will pull out 3 stones. You can also be your child if you want to during the time of this activity, but choose some.
Child, niece,
nephew.
Grandchild.
You ready? If you are a white male, add a stone. If there have been times in your life when you skipped a meal because there was no food in the house, take 1 stone away.
Remember, you are standing in the shoes of a young person that you thought about, okay?
If you are surrounded by people you feel are like yourself, add a stone. If you have visible or invisible disabilities, take a stone away. If your family has health insurance, add 2 stones. If you have ever felt passed over in life, in class, in club, in a sport, based on your gender, ethnicity, age, or sexual orientation, take a stone away. If you have been impacted by divorce, take a stone away. If you come from a supportive family environment, add a stone. If you have the means to attend college, add a stone. If you live in an area that is perceived as unsafe, take a stone away. If you would, look at your stones, look at what you have. As you stand in your current position, from the life perspective, what are your initial thoughts? Are you surprised by the number of life privileges, disadvantages that you have experienced? The gaps you see are true to the gaps created in life through unearned privileges and disadvantages of individuals. Knowing that these gaps will always exist, what can we do to support students who are at a disadvantage based on birth status and or life experiences? The purpose of the privilege talk is to learn how to recognize how power and privilege can affect our lives, even when we are not aware it is happening. Privileges exist, like them or not. What do you want to do with them? How do we remove the gaps between us and students? What do we do to move them further along in life?
I just want to say, I ran out of stones also because I put myself in the place of a child who's very dear, now an adult, and that child said to me, "You gave me hope." And that is our job as educators, as board members, as adults in this system, is to give every child hope. And sometimes that comes in ways that we can't even know when we touch someone. We didn't know until years later that this child, who was a street kid, who walked into my husband's store and sat on a lawnmower and said, "I want me this mojo." And my husband bought that lawnmower and let him go cut grass and keep the money. Gave him his truck on Friday night. Just little things that we had no idea, and now that he's an adult, he came back and said, "You gave me hope." That's our job. As adults, that is our job. Not just educators, but our community has to take these children who have no stones left and give them hope.
You know, I have one child at home that's disabled. And I try to do everything I can for him. He has a job. He cuts grass. I take him. I take him to another little job. He works helping blow up little balls that some people would not even want to consider going and doing. And I think about the kids that are just like him, that don't have that opportunity, that don't have the support staff at home. And we have a charge to help all kids in our system. And I think about Noah. Think about what if he was someone else that they didn't care as much? And, you know, early on we found out at an early age that he had some issues, and we were dealing with it very hard, me and my wife. And I'll never forget this one girl coming to me and saying, "You know, God knew when he just planted that seed in your wife for Noah, he knew what kind of parents he was giving him." And just a young man, he'll be 21 next week. Just a young man he's coming to be. And, you know, I just think about all those kids that just don't have the same opportunity. And this hit home tonight with me, so thank you.
So what we'd like to do now is just give you a few of the things that we're doing to do the work in the Office of Equity, Information, and Student Services.
Monthly equity meetings.
That's right, I was about to start, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Implicit bias panel sponsored by Johnston Health. Implicit bias refresher with Johnston County Public School leadership. Cultural proficiency leadership lens with Johnston County Public Schools leadership.
We've also taken our Johnston County Public Schools principals and central office leadership through a Confronting the Gaps exercise. And we've held privilege walks with the leadership as well, with our own department and with select schools, and we continue to do that. Out in the community, we've also held some one-on-one meetings with our town manager here in Smithfield, for example, who has actually asked us to help them get a diversity and equity initiative going. So we'll be starting with them in January. We've met with representatives from the Johnston County Partnership for Children as well, because what we'd like to do is develop a community advisory. And that community advisory would be much like the Superintendent's Roundtable, where we would meet and just share with each other what we're doing in the area of equity. We are also meeting with representatives from the equity arena. As Dee shared with you through the pictures, we've traveled to Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Cary, and various and sundry places where people say, you know, have said, "I'll meet with you to talk about this," who are just as passionate as we are about doing this for our district. And our district is about this initiative. And Dee represents us on the CC RISA Equity Advisory Council, which meets quarterly. We're also making school visits, we call them field trips, to meet with our principals and school leadership to talk about the equity activities and priorities that they are attending to at their schools, making presentations per request, and we also created the Johnston County Public Schools Roadmap for Equity. And it looks like this, and our principals have received it. And the roadmap just pretty much gives them, it literally is a roadmap where we've shared with them the various actions that need to be taken in order to travel this road towards equity.
These are our equity committee members. Some of them might be a couple missing. You see, quite a few of us were ready for the pose. We love the pose for the camera. This is a list of the equity committee members' names.
And they're from all across the district, as we shared with you. And so as we close, we just want to thank you for this opportunity. This has been a wonderful opportunity for us to delve into what's necessary, as you say, because each of our students is precious to us. We not only want to retain them, but we want them to learn in an environment where they feel safe and wanted. So thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would just like to remind all our board members of the special session on January 6, 2020 at 5 p.m. to discuss our further opportunities and as we move forward with our superintendent search. And if it's no further business, our next board meeting will be January 14th, 2020, 4 p.m. closed session, 5 p.m. open. Do I have a motion to close?
Second.
Motion by Mike Wooten, second by Ms. Grant. All in favor say aye. Aye.